All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I'm your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Share this out, share this out, share this out. It is Friday night, Law of One. Welcome, everybody. I was almost running a little bit late. I was too busy hanging out in the chat talking. And I hadn't even actually primed the raw file. So I've actually backed up because I was like, quick, jump here. Uh, so I'm pretty sure I backed up because we're still talking about he's asking the question. It's 32. He's asking the question about the coalition and how it got formed. Right. So show this out. I shared it in the Law of One chat. It's the only place I've shared it so far. So guys, share this out. We are live today for the first time in the group of the Orion Coalition of Light. I had issues with trying to be able to go live there, and I finally today sat down and said, okay, I'm going to not talk to anybody or do any work while I'm trying to get that to work, because I've got to work to every other place that I've ever tried to send it, and for some reason I couldn't get it to go to that group. So I actually was able to do that, especially because tomorrow, tomorrow we're going to be doing the Earth Day, and I wanted to make sure that since we're doing it, working with the Orion Confederation or the Orion, Coalition, not Confederation, the Orion Coalition of Light, I wanted to make sure that I was actually able to go live on that page in that group. And I hadn't been able to get it to work, and I was like, damn it, I'm getting this to work. So I did. So we're actually live there. We're not live on YouTube. We're live in 3 places on Facebook. And I am going to be working on taking it off platform and putting it on other platforms. I just haven't got there. I was talking about encryption today to go somewhere where we could encrypt, and people were saying, what about Discord? And I looked up Discord. Discord's owned by Microsoft. They're not outright owned by Microsoft, but all the product that they use is from a company that is a subsidiary of Microsoft. So it's owned by a hedge fund that is owned by Microsoft. So all the money and all of the backing that is paying for Discord, all of the technology they use in Discord, all of the software is in fact owned and operated by Microsoft. Okay. So I was like, I don't believe their encryption. Literally Musk just talked about how Twitter wasn't encrypted. And when he got there, he was surprised that it was basically the governments of the world were spying on every single thing that everyone said to each other, to anyone, because nothing was encrypted. And he said that's the way all the platforms are. They're not saying that outright. They're still denying it, but he knows that it's the case. So literally right now, and I know this because people have issues, especially with me. I have been literally tracked by on-world and off-world governments and entities for a long time. And literally, if you're texting me, your phone can all of a sudden not work properly, and you'll be in a chat with me or texting me literally from your cell phone to my cell phone via phone text. And literally, you won't be able to see either your own texts incoming or outgoing. You'll know that you're texting to me and I'm answering you, so you know I'm getting it, but you have no idea. You can't see your own shit. Or all of a sudden, I'll say something to you and it'll duplicate for no apparent reason. Or you'll do that with me, and it only happens with me. My family members are like, the only time that ever happens is when I text you, and then all of a sudden I come through twice or you come through twice. I'm like, that's because it's literally being forwarded. Everything I say is being intercepted and forwarded to, hi Rick, hi Denise, by the way, intercepted and forwarded to the government. It's been happening for a very, very long time, going back to the 90s. Not a joke, to the early 90s. And that's not a joke, and that's just because I literally was a part of the Irish Republic and worked for that government. I was a spy in that government system, kind of still am. I literally helped set up the World Coalition and a bunch of other things. I literally was working under 2 different aliases than this one. for the IRA, and literally set up information highways, websites, and chat rooms around the world that we could encrypt to get information passed to people that we needed to get money and people moved around the planet to where they needed to be. And more importantly, information to the world, because I realized early on when the internet became a thing, and even before that, that was the new warfare, and that was the way to go, because hard paper making newspapers and trying to get the word out to people in the world was old fashioned. They had to go looking for it. If it's on your computer, and then as soon as cell phones came and apps came, I'm listed to this day as an app writer for Apple in the Apple Store, literally under this name and two other names. And I was building apps 10 years ago, 12 years ago, almost 15 years ago now. I was building apps because I was doing code. I wrote code when I was a kid and learned DOS. And literally writing ones and zeros and ones, and then writing code longhand, as what we call it, longhand, where I had to spell everything out. Run XSplit this, go to line 7, and literally was writing code that way before the plug and play stuff from Windows 97. Windows, the first one was pretty good, and Macintosh was, because they stole Macintosh's idea and made Windows. And then all the apps became plug and play, and it got a lot easier. So making apps is really simple now, because all the programs are already written, and you just take them and plug them in. You just say, I want to make a game about racing. You take the app that's the format, the engine that is a race engine, and you use that, and then you take different cars that they already have built, and you decide whether it's going to be stock car, whether it's going to be NASCAR, whether it's going to be Formula 1, Formula 2, whatever, and then you download those programs, and then you give paint schemes, skin schemes, tire schemes, and then you give options of what to do, fuel and driving options, and the whole nines. All of that is plug and play now. You just go pull this in there, pull that in there, pull this in there, pull that in there, stick it in there, and the program's designed to automatically put it in place. I used to have to write all that. Back in the day when I was a kid, we used to have to write all that. Okay. So I utilized all that technology and was literally a spy. And I can say that out loud now. I used to not be able to until 1997. And then from 1997, when the English government officially recognized Ireland as a free and sovereign nation, as if they needed their permission, they had the Easter Uprising in 1916, and they were a free nation from that point on, voted themselves out by 1918 from the UK and had their freedom, but they were not acknowledged, just like America wasn't acknowledged until 25 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and 12 years after the war was over, before the English government said, oh yeah, those people over there, they're a country. Everyone else in the world already knew it, and they already had commerce, and they were already trading. So that's just one of those formalities that the royals think they have to tell you. Australia, you know about that, Rick. How long after the revolution, when you guys took over Australia, did it take before the English crown officially said you guys are a country? You knew you were a country probably for 75 years before they announced to the world that Australia was legit, right? So that's just a formality. However, I'm not afraid of saying that. People used to say, aren't you afraid that if you say that? I'm like, no, the government has already been watching me. They were watching me then. I knew that. They were trying to figure out who I was attached to. Even then, they thought they were smart when they were doing, they were the ones that created most of the viruses that happened. And most of the viruses around the world that are happening, unless they're a cyber attack, like I play World of Warcraft, and 2 days ago, today's Friday, Wednesday, they were under a cyber attack, and I was trying to log in. I'm like, what is the problem? Why am I getting kicked out? And then finally a message came up. So it was happening live. As I was trying to log in, a message came up that they were under a cyber attack, and they were literally botting and having computers all around the world load and go on to blizzard.net. That's that's the loading program for World of Warcraft. And you have to go through that. They did that to stop people from hacking into World of Warcraft and botting. So now they can't get in the game, but they can clog the entrance portal. And that's what they were doing. I literally had a 25-minute wait. I was sitting in line for 25 minutes trying to log into the login portal so I could log into World of Warcraft. live on a server. No joke. And I was literally sitting there talking to people. Then at that point, I started talking to you guys in the chats during the day, and I didn't say why I was doing it. But literally, I was waiting, and I'd go back and click on the screen, and it's still counting down 17 minutes. I'm like, okay. And then eventually I got in. So my point of all of this is I'm not afraid to say that stuff because I did that stuff in real life. And people are like, aren't you worried that like, there might be somebody in the IRA or the Irish government who say, we've never even heard of that guy. That's going to happen because they don't know this name. This name's an alias that I'm using right now. They don't know the name. They wouldn't recognize this. If I told them two other names, they would go, then they would have plausible deniability because I was in charge of mayhem and pandemonium, literally the equivalent of the CIA for the Irish Republican Army. And literally doing that shit and doing that work. And the reason we did all that was to secure their freedom, but we were also setting up of course, the IRA was paid. You can look this up. They were paid by the English and the British governments, the American and British governments, to train every terrorist organization you've ever heard of in your lifetime. And it's not fake. It's not a lie. And they got paid a lot of money to do so. But that was the price that we paid to then be able to broker the freedom. And in doing so, we were also, and they didn't know this, they do now, but what they didn't know is that we were working with people around the world, helping set up this world coalition that is in place now. And so that they wouldn't get caught. The guys from Anonymous all got caught. The guys that were, Occupy Wall Street, they all got caught. That's why those things disappeared. The Anonymous became the Anons that started following Q, working with Q. And there was actually some working going on. I was a part of that. People don't know about that. We still don't tell them on 4chan and 8chan. And they went after those and shut them down. So we went onto a different server and never told the world where that was on the dark web to this day. That's just like Donald Trump before his website went up when he was kicked off Twitter and everywhere else. He was still talking to the world. And it's just that the liberals around the planet, the progressives around the planet, had no access to where he was talking to people. And then he made his mainstream website to be able to do that. The same thing was going on, and the people that didn't get caught and hired by the governments or forced to go to work for the governments going after their friends from the Anonymous people around the world, they joined the coalition and went underground. And then they just started calling themselves Anons. And that went on from 2017 when Q went live on 4chan until Q went dark when the election here in the United States changed hands. And those people that were, I say those people, just so you know, it's the Q was not one person, and it was not Donald Trump. Although he did talk on there, he was actually Q, but he was not Q. He was Q2. So he did come on there and speak. And the Q clearance is just a presidential or higher or lower, I should say. Presidential or lower clearance is a higher clearance above that the president doesn't get. I don't want to get involved in all that right now. Not saying I had anything near that. Sorry. So just so you know, I didn't have any clearance in the United States government. I did have access. I used to have the personal cell phone and emails addresses of the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and most of the heads of the party members. I don't currently, but I did under George Bush Jr. I was able to literally talk to him, although I was also communicating with both of Trump's sons via text during the last election and the presidency. And it wasn't a staffer. It was their personal information that I was actually talking to them. More Eric than Junior. Eric, he's more readily listening to people than Don Jr. I'm not saying Don Jr. is a bad person. He's just very busy working for his father, and Eric seems to be the brains of the outfit. I'm not saying those people are in any way not smart. That family's brilliant. They are brilliant. But that's funny. But I'm not afraid to say that. I say it out loud. That's just like when people say, what's the Orion Coalition of Light? Because my show's called Orion Rising and my book is called Orion Rising. So they assume I made the Orion Coalition of Light. I'm like, no, I made the group for Facebook. I turned one of my other spiritual groups into that, but I didn't create that name because I called myself Orion Rising. I call myself Orion Rising because of the Orion Coalition of Light. And that is literally the coalition that I came here with to this planet. And I'm not afraid to say that either. I used to be. I kept that quiet forever. And that's why I played the video. I'm going to play that video again because we're running up to the Earth Day tomorrow. So I'm going to do a little bit of Earth Day commercial here in the beginning before we do the Law of One. I'm going to play 2 videos. So it's going to be a total of about 5 minutes. Because 1 minute, one is 2 minutes, 2 seconds, one is 2 minutes, 38 seconds. I'm going to play both those videos. Those of you listening on the MP3 file, you're not going to see any of the visuals or the words on the screen. Most of you have probably already seen this, but because it's literally tomorrow is Earth Day, we're going to be on the air on the Orion Coalition of Light group page, but we'll be sharing it to everywhere else, including the chat. So those of you for the Law of One, if you're in the chat for the Law of One, you'll get the link to be able to watch it. So don't fret on that if you want to come in and listen in to and learn some information about what to do and resources for trying to help replenish and restock the earth of its energy and life and that sort of stuff. Okay. So I am going to do some commercials right here, right quick. Okay. And then we'll go from there into the Law of One. So anybody who shows up that gets pissed off about it, I apologize. Peter, welcome. Speaking of the coalition member, there's Peter, my brother. I'm going to play the videos for the commercial for tomorrow that we'll be on talking, and Peter will be there I believe at some point tomorrow. He'll be on to talk. Thank you for sharing my video, Peter. So I'm going to go ahead and play this video, and then I'll play the second one. The first one is the Orion Coalition of Light. The other one is the commercial for Earth Day tomorrow. Okay. Okay, and so the Orion Coalition of Light, we just happen to be raw, literally, and that's where I backed up to, is going to be talking about coalition. He's talking about the coalition of Venus, which the Orion Coalition of Light is part of that coalition. They are not that coalition. They are members in that coalition. The Orion Coalition of Light exists because of the Orion Crusaders. That's what they called themselves when they were in the Orion nebula, the Orion area of the universe, and they were invading star systems there, island hopping, just like they're doing here. We kicked them out of that area, and the Orion Coalition of Light comes from the 3 stars of Orion's belt. They're not actually stars; they're actually universes. However, but they're stars in this solar system, and then universes outside of that are actually making them brighter, which is almost an oddity, but I think that was done on purpose. But they're the star systems, the solar systems that make up those 3 stars of Orion's belt is where the Orion Coalition of Light comes from, and we expelled the Orion Crusaders from that region of space, and they came to this region of space, and we followed them and helped set up the Coalition of Venus that is here now. You guys know that as the Galactic Council or the Coalition of Planets, and we're part of that coalition, and there are millions of us, like close to hundreds of millions of us, on-world and off-world, that have been here for a very, very long time, helping this planet, just like Ra and their people. In fact, Ra's people. And Ra is part of the Orion Coalition of Light. If you listen to Ra tells you they're from Orion. Okay, so we're part of that coalition that came here. Ra had come here and made the mistake of giving information to the people, and they used that and kind of got people stuck. And they stayed to help, and then quarantined the place, and then the Coalition of Planets was formed, and that is set up in the 6th dimension in orbit around Venus, but we can't see that from this 3rd dimensional level, and we're a part of that. That's why I bring this up, because Ra is about to talk about that. As soon as I start, he's going to be explaining how the coalitions got set up and where they came from. Okay, so and because of the time that it is now, in this place, in this 3D reality on this planet, we have decided that it is time to tell the world who we are. And that's literally just happened in the last full moon. And we're at the new moon now. So literally 15 days ago, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago now, because the coalition on this earth declared their independence from the cabal and opposing them, and stood up, and we're not afraid. So we're standing up in solidarity with them and allowing people to know, oh, by the way, we are here. So I'm also going to play this video, and then we'll get into Ra, and you'll see him talking about the Coalition of Planets and how it got set up, and how many people are involved in that. So, but first I'm going to play the commercial for tomorrow, for Earth Day, that we are at the Orion Coalition of Light will be putting on, giving information out about Earth Day and about the planet and about what you guys can do on every level to help raise the vibration of the planet and heal the souls on it and the life forms on it, in it, around it. So here we go. Right, Rick? Isn't he cute? Rick said, "Oh, a drop bear. Yeah, cute little one, right?" Crikey, Brady says. Okay, so yeah, guys, tomorrow, 1 p.m. U.S. West Coast time, West Coast of the North American continent, 1 p.m. tomorrow. That would be the 22nd of April, our time, GMT -7. So wherever it is on the planet that you are, if you know Greenwich Mean Time, you know that it'll be -7 at 1 p.m. So GMT -7, 1 p.m. Our time. And so that's, 7 p.m. GMT time. Those of you who are in the UK, that's 8 p.m. UK time, London, Ireland, Scotland time. If you're in Australia, it's 8 hours? No, you're 15 hours, 16 now, 15, 16 hours, because you're almost to the prime meridian. So it'll be nighttime for you. It'll be the 23rd. Right? It'll be past midnight for you. Right. So, yeah. So guys, you should come and take a look. There's going to be at least 4 or 5 of us talking. We're only going to be on the air for about, 3 hours, maybe a little longer if we go long. We're not going to do a full day like we've done in the past. In the past, we've done 12-hour days. Last year, we did 2 12-hour days. The year before that, we did 2 12 or 13, 14-hour days. We're just going to do a few hours, but we're going to pack a lot into it. We're going to have some kids on talking in the beginning, getting their perspective and showing you guys, like I said, resources and talk about that. And to answer, Penny asked a question. I'll put it up on the screen here. She asked the question, so when I feel energy of love and light doing the infinity symbol she has, doing infinity wave of energy running through me is a good thing, right? Yes, absolutely. Yes, it is. We call that the quickening. We haven't really talked too much about that to the world, but that's called the quickening. When you they mentioned it. There was a movie, if you guys are interested in watching, Highlander, a movie from the 90s that became a television series, and they made 4 movies. If you watch the very first one, they actually mention the quickening in there, and that is when you are tapping into the natural energy and feeling the energy of nature. In fact, he was teaching him in the movie to feel the energy of a stag, and to be able to tap into and utilize that energy. So if you have to be fighting, because they were all fighting in swords, they were immortals, and they were fighting against evil immortals for the prize. And I can't tell and reveal, if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to reveal what all that was about. But you were able to tap into the nature energy, the energy of nature, and to be able to utilize that. And it's a lot like Star Wars and the Force. And tapping into the Force. And the quickening is when you do that, and that comes from the Celts, who the Druids and the Wiccans from the world, this religion that is 4,000 or 5,000 years older than most of the religions on the planet. They can date back, and they don't want anyone to know that. They can date back the Viking religions further than the Egyptian and the Indian religions. The only people older than them that still have their religion would be the Aborigines in Australia. Rick, you know about that. So the quickening is part of what they call the warp spasm. They did not have any word for in their language. Neither did the Vikings. All the Vikings did not know the word fear. They didn't know the concept of fear in any way. Their idea of the concept of fear was very accurate to the actual chemical thing that happens in your body, mind you. They actually called it a warp spasm, and when someone asked them what was that, they said it was the goddess or god, depending on whether you were a northern Viking or a southern Viking. The northern Vikings were more warlike, masculine energy, and they had the more female or more male dominated, even though you had the dual aspect of Odin and Freya. You still had Odin being the overseer like the Zeus was. He had the final say. The man had the final say. So it was a masculine-based religion. And then the Celts in the south, in the west, they had a female goddess that was forever, and the god would cycle and die and be reborn and be the life giver, but the life bringer was the feminine. And they said the warp spasm was the goddess giving them the power and energy of the energy field of nature so that they could then fight for their lives. And it was and so the truth is, what fear is a response in your body, that your body goes through a chemical response and dumps adrenaline into your bloodstream, which literally makes you a superhuman, and it gives you the ability to, it's what we call the fight or flight mechanism, which gives you the ability to either fight for your life or run for your life, depending on what you need to do. And when you get scared, you can run faster and farther on the energy that your body dumps into your bloodstream, without becoming winded or falling over from exhaustion, and you can go a lot longer. The berserkers in the Viking pantheon were able to tap into this and utilize that and go berserk. You should look into that and figure out what that is too. So there was no concept of, oh no, I should be afraid. This feeling makes me want to run and cower. That's what they try to teach you. And when the Europeans from the Roman Greeks showed up and started trying to convert them, they were teaching everybody to be passive, and oh no, that feeling is bad and you're supposed to run and cower. And so they taught them the word fear. That's the only reason why the Vikings ever learned it. So the Vikings before that they were fearless because they didn't see it as a bad thing. And it was something, oh no, run for your life. It was the energy of the natural energy of the universe pumping them up with this warp spasm, which we call the quickening. And they would have all kinds of energy to fight. And it was a good thing. And they would get pumped up even more. And that's why they would fight to the death, and they won more battles because they were not afraid. They didn't have that word, I'm scared, I have fear. There was nothing in their concept of their language that meant that. What they were feeling was always more accurate to what was actually happening physiologically and chemically in their body than fear is. Fear is a concept that is teaching you, don't fight for your life, run. And that's what they try to teach everybody. Be passive and always cower and run. Here in the state of California, it's not a right to stand state. If somebody comes in, breaks into my house and tries to kill me, and I shoot them with a gun, they'll arrest me because I didn't run and cower and hide in the bathroom and call 911 and get myself beat to death while I was waiting for the police to decide whether it was something they should show up for or not. And then show up, and then I could have dead family members while I'm waiting for them to show up. And then I may be prosecuted by the same people, but the bad guys wouldn't be prosecuted at all because, hey, they're just poor people trying to rob from rich, and they were hungry. And so, they can come in your house and kill you to get food. Come on. What's your problem? But if I was in the state of Arizona and somebody broke into my house and said, I just broke into my house, and I said, get out. And they said, no, I could shoot them dead on the spot. And I would be put on the news and be a hero for doing so. And then they wouldn't play it on the news here at all. Even if I bludgeoned him to death, if somebody comes into your house and they're attacking you, they break something to get in or force their way in, that you have a right to stand in the many, many states in the Union of the United States. So my point is that they don't want you to do that. They want to teach you that what you feel is fear and to run away. We didn't have that. So we still embrace that. It's very old and it's very ancient. And it's called the quickening. And we don't talk about that very much to anyone in the world outside of whether or not, if you're a Druid or a pagan or a Wiccan, you kind of know about it. But even then, you would have to be a Merlin to really know the concept. And it's only us who teach the Druids that. And that concept. So I was surprised back in 94 or 97, whenever that movie came out, when that happened. And he told them, feel the stag, and he could feel the stag. And the both of them got all kinds of energy. And he looked up at him and said, it was Sean Connery was playing the part of Juan Valdez Villalobos Ramirez. And he looked up at Connor McLeod and said, that is the quickening. And then they took off running, and they were both like full of energy, and they ran, and they didn't get very winded for a long time. And they were running across the beach, down the beach, and laughing with little kids with all the energy they had. Okay, so that is that, right? So Celeste, thank you and welcome. I'm going to read you guys' stuff, and then I am going to get into the law of one, I swear, right? So Rick says, I'd like to know more in my heart and soul. I got to put on my glasses now, guys, to read. Oh, I got my dirty glasses on. I'll have to fix that. I need to know more and more of my heart and soul. I'm feeling some reason I've always believed every tribe, clan, army, etc., was run by the wisdom of the females behind the scene, just internal feeling, not researched. Well, in truth, because women were kept down in the largest 3-4 religions on the earth right now, they were male dominated, male based. Women were in the background and they were running the place because they were just as smart as men. They always have been, and sometimes smarter in a lot of ways because of the difference of the balance of the Kundalini energy. They, being more nurturing, could also tap into that warlike side. That's why they say hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, because they're more cat-like. Guys are more dog-like. You want to fight somebody, you want to do it fairly and get out, and stand in front of me and let's go toe to toe and beat on each other. And that's the way men are. Women aren't that way. Women will gut you and slit your throat looking at you and tell you it's not going to feel good when you realize what just happened to you. And so they're just ruthless. They do what it needs to be done. So in the background, they did the same thing. So your instincts, Rick, are a little bit more right than you think. You'd be surprised how many writers in history were pen names, or they propped up their brother or husband as the author, and it was actually the women. Here's a perfect example. I was talking to Cassie about this 2 weeks ago now, and because I was doing a study at one time on pirates, and I was going to write books on pirates and tell their real story. So I'm like an authority on pirates, and I'll have you know that the top 3 most wealthy, successful pirates in the history of this world were not men, and they are not names you probably know. Okay. The most successful pirate captain in the entire earth ever, recorded ever by anyone, was Mistress Chang from Shanghai and her big giant junk ship that she had. They used her character in Pirates of the Caribbean. Mistress Chang was in there. She was the only female captain other than other than Elizabeth Swann. And that all the captains that were there were actually real. Even Captain Teague, if you look them up in history, they were actually real captains. And where they met was Pirate Cove. And they don't tell you where Pirate Cove is, but it was a legendary place. Pirate Cove is actually on the east coast of Madagascar, halfway midsection between north and south of the island of Madagascar, which is on the east coast of Africa. That was where they literally to this day call it Pirate Cove. You can look it up. You can actually go there and take a tour. They still have tours that you can go. And the stronghold of the pirates was in the Caribbean, on a place called Warsaw, an island called Warsaw, which you can also Google and go to currently. And it is still owned and operated by independent sovereign nation of pirates that set that up. And it's been that island has been there for over 1,000 years. Not a joke. The island of Tortuga from Pirates of the Caribbean does actually exist, but it's currently underwater. It's on the east coast of Florida, out in the water about 50 miles. You can go there, but it's waist deep now underwater. So the island of Tortuga back in the 1100s was above water because the sea level was a lot lower. And there was actually a fort there, and you can actually go there and take a tour and go scuba diving and see the whole city, the town, the fort, and everything that was there. But the highest peak of the island is now waist high, and you can stand on that when you get out there. It's just a shoal now, but it's actually there. So Anne Bonny would be the second most successful pirate. She was Jack Rackham's girlfriend. She was actually from Ireland, and she was sold as a slave in Ireland, and an English American man who lived in Louisiana bought her and married her, and she ran away from him and ended up on Warsaw and found Jack Rackham, who was a weak-minded individual who wanted to be bigger than he was, and she basically propped him up as a pirate captain, and she was doing all of the work. And actually she was bisexual and had a lover, was a female. And so Jack didn't mind because he got to have 2 women all the time that were his co-captains that he could have sex with. So he was okay. He was a drunkard. He was a braggart. That's what got him captured. That's what got him killed. You can look all this up. Jack Rackham. He got caught because they were literally got jumped in the middle of the night, and he was drunk, and he went on deck and was announcing who he was, screaming at the English, "I am Jack Rackham, and you'll never get me." So a sniper shot him in the shoulder. He fell overboard. They ended up boarding the ship, arresting everybody. And then, of course, Anne Bonny and the other girl claimed they were pregnant. And at the time, the United States would not incarcerate pregnant women. So she contacted her husband because they took him to they actually took him. They're off the coast of Louisiana when they got caught around Tortuga. They took him on to Tortuga, and eventually we're going to string him up. She wrote a letter to her husband, told the people I'm pregnant and I'm married, and my husband will pay for me. And the husband came and got her. She died of old age in Louisiana, and kept her wealth and was able to go and get it and bring it back and lived. I was going to write her story about what happened to her and her children. There are still people that are related to Anne Bonny that live in New Orleans and in the United States to this day. So women have always been, but you don't hear about that in history. Men only tell the history of men, and women have always been property in if you're Hebrew or anything from the Arab world, women were a property, and that was it. So therefore, they can't know anything, and they're stupid, and they're not smart. To this day, they're still fighting for their rights over there because of Sharia law, which goes back to then. Okay, so sorry about that. I know that's politics that maybe you guys didn't want to hear about, but your instincts are right, Rick, because women have always been running shit from behind, and they just were okay with that. They didn't have to be have everybody praise them because they would still get the money. And they were smarter because, think about this, Anne Bonny, no one knows who she is. She went into obscurity, and she's the second most successful pirate in the history of the world. She made more money and kept it than anyone else except for Mistress Chang on the face of the earth ever. Okay? And no one even knows it. So that's very successful, if you ask me, because she got away with it. And she went back home, and she lived as a rich woman who was born a peasant in Ireland and sold into slavery, turned out to be an aristocrat because of pirating. And no one even knew that she even existed. And all they knew is that she was part of his crew and she was pregnant. And of course, they just assumed she was a whore on board the ship. So they were like, who's she? She's not running anything. She's some fucking whore that guy had on a ship. Bad luck. That's why he got caught. You're not supposed to have women on board ships. He had two. That's why he got caught. Ha, ha, ha. They laughed about it. Last thing that Anne Bonny said, you can look this up, to Jack Rackham, he was being taken to the gallows to be strung up. And he was standing up on a keg, and he had the rope around his neck, and he was, "I am Jack Rackham," and blah, blah, blah. He was talking some shit. And she looked over at him as they were leading her to freedom. And she said, "If you were half the man you think you are, you wouldn't be standing there right now, and you would be going free like me. But you're about to die. Have a nice end of your life." And they hung him a few seconds later as she was walking away. True story. You can look that up. Right? Okay, so Celeste says, "I believe Odin gave," wait, now everybody's talking and it moved. "Odin gave his eye to a female soothsayer." Well, kind of in a sense. So let's get into that. That's actually pretty good. Celeste gave his eye to the soothsayer for the power of intuition. He actually did. You're actually right in that. And I'll explain that. That's actually part of the riddle. There's a song by Wardrunna where they sing about that. It's called Hel, Hel, and that's about the female goddess, mind you. And he's singing to her and to Odin, and part of the poem that they actually turned into a song. It was actually a chanting poem. So Wardrunna just turned it into a modern day song. And used all the same words. Literally, part of the song in the chorus is saying to Odin, "I know where you hid your eye." And you need to know that. It was that's the poem, like the Book of the Dead for the Egyptians. As you're trying to go to Valhalla, you need to know certain things for certain gatekeepers to allow you to go across Bifrost, the Rainbow Bridge. And one of those is to understand why Odin lost his eye and gave it up, who he gave it up to, and what he got for it. And that has to do with him giving up his eye, is to open up his third eye. So you're absolutely right, Celeste, that he gave up his third eye and he gave it to Hel, not Hell, but Hel. And she gave him the power of intuition. And the ravens, the two ravens, one looked forward and one looked backwards, that were on his shoulder, all the time. That's where the pirate thing comes with a bird on the shoulder, comes from that, by the way. And he would send the birds out, and they would fly out, and one would go into the past and one would go into the future. And they would record everything. He could see through his third eye. So he gave up one eye to open his third eye. And by doing that, he had two eyes. He was able to see the past and the future. And then with his other eye, he was able to see the present. So you're absolutely right, Celeste. He gave up his one eye to get the power of intuition. And I think, and this is what she says to continue. She says, and I think that that's the legend where runes came from. You're very, very astute, by the way. I know that you are anyway. You're the freaking priestess of a coven, of your own coven that you created. So I know that you know this, right? And why the runes are actually more feminine than other forms of divination. And so there's, guys, now you see why I said that. I'm going to put that up on the screen for those of you who have visuals. You can reread that to know that what I was reading was not something I made up. Celeste is actually right in that. And that the runes, there's also a song by Helieg, which is German, that means, oh Lord, now I have to translate that. It means peace or healing. It means heart chakra, basically. And they go, and actually, I'll have to link it to you, Celeste, if you haven't seen it. They actually have the song of the activation of the runes. And it's the goddess with the god, but the goddess is the one that's in control, and the god is working with her, and a Merlin. And they start out literally eating mushrooms. So they get the DMT and ayahuasca high at the same time from eating the mushrooms. And then she is activating, and they are activating all the runes, and they're literally doing it. And they literally make the shapes of the runes with their arms and their body. And they're doing it masculine and feminine, Kundalini energy, a war and a peace energy of the goddess and the god. And literally, as they're doing that, the runes are around them on the ground are being activated. So they're activating the energy of the planet. It's the charm of making. And I'll have to send you that video because you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. So the runes were actually carved and seen just like the Reiki runes were cast originally from the universe into the third eye and the mind of I can't think of his name right now. I'm actually atoned from him and his wife from both of their lines of my Reiki master teacher, and I can't think of his name right now. I apologize for that. But the same thing happened to Odin because of Freya and Hel. And he got his eyesight from her, and then Freya, and he created the runes. And so you're absolutely right in the backstory to that religion. So then she says, Isis is also the only god to know Ra's true name. Yeah, now we're going to the Egyptian pantheon, and you're absolutely right. Let me put that up on the board for you guys to see. Isis was the only god to know Ra's true name, making her the most powerful god because she could control Ra by using his name. And that's very important. Very important to know that what you just said right there. I know you know this, and that's why you said it. If you guys know anything about religions and you know anything about magic and the magical world, knowing someone's true name is a power name. Usually it is. And so to know that, you would then be able to control even the gods. And that's why they didn't never give you their true name. They gave you the name that you knew, like she was saying, like Ra. But what was Ra's real name? What was Ra's magical name, spiritual name? And when I did a meditation and I had a encounter with a red dragon, I didn't know the red dragon's magic name, but the red dragon knew mine. And I found out later after the whole meditation and really getting in depth with that I was the red dragon. So the red dragon knew that about me, but I wasn't awake enough to know that was me in another realm. And so I was worried because the red dragon knew my actual name, and I didn't know the dragon's name. That's why Smaug in Tolkien's book, they knew Smaug's name. And that's how he was able to fool him, not just because he was invisible, but because he knew Smaug's name. He never said it in the movie, the book they talked about it. But knowing the true name of someone would then you would be able to call them out, and they have to listen to you because you know who they really are. And that goes in a lot of other religions as well, knowing that stuff, right? So let's see, what else are you guys talking about here? I'm going to get into the law of one, right? Right, the magicians, now we're down to Celeste saying again, she said the magician's secret power is having a good assistant. Yeah, it's the truth. Truth be told, yeah, having a good assistant, right? Oh, that's funny. That's Celeste just said that. That's hilarious. I agree with that. So if you look at Frank Herbert, when he wrote the Dune Saga, getting into power and names, getting into the Dune Saga, he interwove that into that whole entire saga. They had what was called the weirding module. Again, the weirding module was utilizing words, knowing that words have power and have sound, and the sound and vibration of a word is power. And they had this thing that was called the weirding module that went around your neck and literally sat right at your larynx, so that it would pick up your voice, whether you were actually speaking out loud or not when you were making sound. And as they were training, the Fremen was the name of the Inuit people, the desert people that lived on Arrakis, also known Dune. Dune was what they called it. Because it was literally a sand dune, one giant big desert. And they were training on the weirding modules, and Paul Atreides, who became Usul Muad'Dib. Muad'Dib was the name, his legendary name. Usul was his personal name, so like a surname and a personal name, like my name is Leonard, and people would call me Lenny or Leo. Leo's the personal name, and Leonard is my surname. And so his surname was Muad'Dib, and his personal name was he was Paul Atreides, was his class name because he was born on the planet Atreides. Paul Atreides. They ruled the planet Atreides, and he ended up in charge of Dune. And then, of course, you'd have to read the books and watch the movies. But while they were training with the weirding module, one of his the personal guard, went to ask him a question and had his weirding module turned on. And he said, Muad'Dib, to ask him a question. And all of a sudden, the weirding module amplified his name. And everybody was like, oh, shit, look out. And he turned away from the crowd and faced it at a pillar. And it literally blasted the pillar and almost knocked this pillar down and almost knocked the roof down of the building that they were in. And once they realized the dust settled, then literally Paul, Muad'Dib, Usul, literally went, my name is a killing word. And they used that in combat. They taught people from that point to be very careful when you have a weirding module on your body. Don't leave it on when you start speaking, because some words that we're unaware of right now might be killing words. And one of which was his name. So knowing someone's true name, getting back to what Celeste was talking about, his true name, his magic name, was actually a sound vibration that hit a certain frequency that would kill if amplified. And so using that name, that'd be like saying the power of Christ compels you in the Christian religion. So Frank Herbert interwove that into that concept, into the concept, because he was a Jesus character. He was the hero of the thousand faces. He was Thor, he was Odin, he was King David. It was the same saga, same scenario. He was Beowulf. All of those stories in real life was what was being played out in Frank Herbert's Dune saga with Paul Atreides. Paul Atreides became the savior, and he was the anti-hero. He fell into it and didn't realize he was the legend that was supposed to come. And then he embraced that and then went from there and became very godlike and ascended in a very matrix way, and ascended to basically, literally, at the end of the first book, he makes it rain in the desert with his thoughts. That's literally how powerful he became. He was the Christ character, and his name was literally the sound of his name being spoken was detrimental to people if you had an amplifier, a weirding module on and turned on. Okay, so back to the coalition. The reason that I threw up the stuff in the beginning about the coalition, tomorrow we'll be putting on Earth Day, and you guys are all welcome to come and take a look at that. And Celeste, if you want to, you can come on and talk if you have time. 1 p.m. West Coast U.S. time tomorrow. We'll probably be on until 3 or 4 p.m. If you want to come on at some point, let me know, and I'll get you into the chat group that I have set up from last year for Earth Day, and you can come on and talk if you want, if you have time, if you're not busy. I know it's like last second. I didn't talk to you about it, but I didn't set up a lot of speakers because I don't want to do a 12-hour like I've done in the past. You know that. You've been around. You've seen them, right? We did one. It was last year or 2 years ago. It was 2 days, 12 hours each day. I'm not doing anything like that. We're just going to be sitting around talking about stuff and educating the world on resources for Earth Day and how to make Earth Day every day and how to contribute and what to do and different ideas of what things you could do to contribute. We have websites to give out that are, official websites worldwide for people that can go on there and get workbooks to teach children. It was 2 years ago. Thank you, Peter. When we had the really big one, it was 2 years ago. Okay. So we're talking about that coalition, the coalition, Orion Coalition of Light. And now literally the question is being posed to Ra about the coalitions and how they were formed. So let's go ahead and start with that. I know it's an hour into it, but you'll get why I'm spending so much time on this particular session. This session is 50 some odd questions long. It's one of the bigger ones. And it has a lot of information that was unpacked in a very short time. Because all of the sessions were only about 45 minutes. And in that 45-minute session, they went through a lot of information that people kind of pass over and don't really spend a lot of time on. Some of these sessions, you have to spend a tremendous amount of time if you're really wringing it out. So that's why everything that I've been talking about so far up to this date, you're going to realize as we go forward. And then quickly, they're going to shift gears. And you'll see that. But it'll also pertain to everything that I've been talking about so far. That's why I spent the whole hour prefacing what we're about to do. All right, so let me go ahead and start here, and let me know about the sound. I'm turning it up again, so let me know when I'm gonna let it play. And somebody in the chat there, tell me if you can hear it. Okay, and if you can't, tell me that as well, so that I know that I need to adjust the sound. Okay, here we go.
Thank you very much. Can you tell me how the Confederation of Planets was formed and why? Ra, I am Ra. The desire to serve begins in the dimension of love or understanding, to be an overwhelming goal of the social memory complex. Thus, those percentiles of planetary entities, plus approximately 4% more of whose identity we cannot speak, found.
Thank you, Peter. And thank you, Celeste. I know it was, right? It was a blast. We had a good time. It was very tiring because it was 2 12-hour days, but man, wasn't it great? We had 8 continents, right? And 10 countries from all around the world. Isn't that what it was? 8. We had representation from 10 different countries, and I guess there's only 7 continents. So all the continents, right? We had everybody from every country. We had 2 people from Africa, India, Australia, America, Canada, England, Ireland. I'm trying to think of where else. It was like everywhere on the world we had people. I don't think China was the only place we didn't have represented during that Earth Day. That was a blast. We had a good time, but I was so tired afterwards. 2 12-hour days of producing the entire time. I wasn't talking the whole time, but I had to be there on air the whole time. That's crazy. All right, let's go. Thank you for telling me, Peter, that it was sounding good, by the way, and Celeste. Thank you.
Themselves long ago in your time seeking the same thing, service to others. The relationship between these entities as they entered an understanding of other beings, other planetary entities, and other concepts of service was to share and continue together these commonly held goals of service. Thus, each voluntarily placed the social memory complex data in what you may consider a central thought complex available to all. This then created a structure whereby each entity could work in its own service while calling upon any other understandings needed to enhance the service. This is the cause of the formation and the manner of the working of the Confederation. 16.33 Questioner, with such a large number of planets in this galaxy, I was wondering if you say there are approximately 500 Confederation planets. That seems to me to be a relatively small percentage of the total number of 4th and 5th density planets around. Is there any reason for this relatively small percentage in this confederation? Ra, I am Ra. There are many confederations. This confederation works with the planetary spheres of 7 of your galaxies, if you will, and is responsible for the callings of the densities of these galaxies.
Okay, now think about this. I think he's gonna try and clarify that and say, do you mean galaxies or do you mean solar systems? And Raw gets a little confused right here. But think about what he just said: 7 of your galaxies, right? But I think he's talking about solar systems, but it's actually more than that. However, the information couldn't be in 1982 couldn't be given out as readily as what we can then tell you now. Okay, so literally, there's 23 total solar systems in this region of space that were taken over by the coalition from the Orion Crusaders, the evil people that we chased out of Orion. They came to this sector. They're on their way to the center of the universe, attacking and trying to take over this universe completely. There are 23 solar systems in this sector. And out of those 23 solar systems, all but 3 are currently freed. But in 1982, they weren't yet. Okay. And so he was saying 7 universes, and I think he's going to say solar systems, but it was actually 23. Those are just the ones that were invaded and taken over. So the coalition is not just on those planets or from those planets, but it's from a larger area. When you think of we came here from Orion, so did the Ra group of people. That entire species also came from Orion, but they didn't come from Orion's belt. I think they came from Siri. And that's why some of them are on this planet as wanderers. And some people say I came from Siri. I know that I'm from Siri. You came with Ra's people. You just don't know that yet. Right? If you think you came from the belt of Orion, you're probably with the Coalition of Light, the Orion Coalition of Light. If you are attached to, and you look up at the Orion and you see that belt and you look at those 3 stars and you go, wow, I think that's home. That feels home to me. Then you came with this coalition that I'm a part of, that Peter's a part of. You came with that coalition. You're with us in that coalition, which is millions, if not close to 1 billion souls on world and off world that is here in this 3D. So it's not just us, that are now openly talking about it. You're going to start hearing people around the world start saying this more and more often. And you'll say, do you know Leo? And they're going, I don't know who that guy is. Because in this life, where everything's compartmentalized, seriously compartmentalized, to the point where we all complain about not getting enough information. I was just laughing about that. If you guys know Corey Goode, who was part of the secret space program, the SSP, he even was complaining that because of COVID, things have gotten locked down so bad that we have a hard time in 3D getting 3D knowledge. I was just talking to Cassie about this last night. We had a meeting last night, and afterwards I talked to off camera from the meeting. I talked to 2 of the 5 people that were there, and explained that a lot of what you're going to be getting from the council itself. So it's not going to be 3D, somebody calling you or giving you a text or but you'll get that too. But that's not where most of your information is going to come from. 3D information will come from this planet. All of the other stuff that's coalition comes from meditation. And that's the hardest part, that people have to get to the realization that I have to actually plug into the council or astral project out of body to the council or the Akashic record to get that information. And so that's one of the harder things for people to realize and get used to. So we always complain in 3D. I'm always doing that, man. No one's telling me shit. Peter was upset about a month ago. Man, they're not telling me shit. That's because we get stuck here too. And we're like, nobody on Earth's talking to me. And that forces us to go off planet to get information. Right. And they can only give us what they can give us. There is a prime directive. So a lot of times if you're meditating or if you're astral projecting and you end up going before one of the councils or start talking to your guides, you'll wake up and you'll be like, oh man, just as you start to wake up, man, I just got told some really cool shit. And then it literally winks out of existence and you're like, fuck, no, I don't remember it now. They've given you the information, but in 3D, you can't know it yet. So but they give you the clue, the memory of having something that you lost. And that is there to tell you, that's how they get the workaround to work around the prime directive. It's there to say you have information within you that you are familiar with from the Bible, where they say, here, write this down, now eat that and lock it up because you don't get to know it right now. So the same thing happens to us from our guides. And that means that you can unlock it, but you have to get to that place of understanding to be able to actually start to transmute it into your consciousness. And so they give you the knowledge that you had some knowledge, and then it was taken from you. That's kind of one of the stories. It's the truer story about the Garden of Eden, not this bastardized one that makes you think that learning knowledge is bad and evil. Because the person in the Garden of Eden was not a snake. It was a serpent goddess, Celeste, who was a goddess of who, right? And she was a serpent goddess. Over here in the South America and Central America would be Viracocha or Quetzalcoatl, a serpent god and goddess that is a knowledge bringer, a giver. So she was actually a giver of knowledge and said, here, eat this. So that whole story that God said don't is the lie. That's the lie to tell you you're not supposed to have any knowledge but what I tell you. Shut up, be quiet, and only take what I give you. And that's what the corruption in the churches have corrupted the whole. They don't want you being spiritual on your own. They don't want you reading the book ahead. They don't want you doing your own work. Oh, no, you'll get it wrong if you do that. You'll never figure it out. You'll figure it out wrong and you'll go astray. Well, if you're in 3D trying to read that and apply it to 3D, any of the Bibles, any of the dusty tomes, you will go wrong. If you're learning that it's spiritual and you're going within yourself and you start that journey and you read all of those dusty old tomes, you'll actually get it and start ascending. And when you ascend, you become smarter because you unlock knowledge that actually makes you smarter. And therefore, you actually don't need those people. Jesus was trying to teach you that. So was Muhammad. So was Moses. They were all trying to teach you that you don't need to go to a box and have these humans tell you anything. The knowledge that you get comes from the Lord. It comes from the universe, whatever you want to call that Godhead. And they all got killed for that. Moses was made to wander in the desert for 40 years. And then when they went to the land of milk and honey, which, Rick, we talked about that, what that means. When they went to the land of milk and honey, the God, the supposed good God, most holy, loving, all-knowing, all-seeing, said, oh, Moses, you and your family don't get to come here. Go out in the desert and die. Think about that, how that was obviously must be a corruption. What kind of reward is that telling you if you serve the Lord and free an entire nation, but you do something, one little thing that the Lord doesn't like, and then all of a sudden you're fucked and you don't get to go to heaven over it? That's not a good God. That's not a real God. That's not somebody who's actually, that's a child. Like, that's a human concept. Humans are children. God is not a child. God is not, I mean, God is a child, but God's a little child. God's an uncorrupted mind of a baby, but very awake. That's why I loved in Monty Python's Eric the Viking, when they got to Valhalla, all the gods were about 8 years old. I loved that they did that. It was hilarious. It's a middle finger, right, to the gods, but it's also in an existential way, showing they were not corrupted by being human, and they were actually a little bit more innocent, right? Yeah, right. Rick said religion is to control the masses. Spirituality is to control yourself. Absolutely, that is the actual truth. Religion is to control the masses. Spirituality, I'm reiterating what Rick said. Spirituality is personal, and it's for you to control yourself. And by doing so, as within, so without, as below, so above, the way the saying is supposed to go. Even Jesus said that in was it Matthew? Yeah, in Matthew. If you read that, you'll see that Jesus even said that in it was either Matthew or Mark. That he said that literally, that God said, what you reap on the earth, I shall too reap in heaven. What you sow on the earth, I shall too sow in heaven. That's literally saying, as below, so above, as within, so without. Not what I say goes, as above, so below, the way they try to convince you that it means now. God was never saying, do as I say. God was saying, you have free will, and what you say, I will build for you. Okay. And that's literally that. Okay, let's continue with the coalition.
16.34 Questioner, would you define the word galaxy as you just used it? Ra, we use that term in this sense as you would use star systems. 16.35 Questioner, I'm a little bit confused as to how many total planets then, roughly, does the confederation that you are in serve? Ra, I am Ra. I see the confusion. We have difficulty with your language. The galaxy term must be split. We call galaxy that vibrational complex that is local. Thus, your sun is what we would call the center of a galaxy. We see you have another meaning for this term. 16.36 Questioner, yes. In our science, the term galaxy refers to the lenticular star system that contains millions and millions of stars, and this had occurred earlier in our communications, this area of confusion. I'm glad to get it cleared up. Now, using the term galaxy in the sense that I just gave you, of the lenticular star system that contains millions of stars, do you know of the evolution in other galaxies besides this one? Ra, I am Ra. We are aware of life in infinite capacity. You are correct in this assumption. 16.37 Questioner.
Right, life. We are aware of life in infinite capacity. Okay, let's continue.
Can you tell me if the progression of life in the other galaxies is similar to progression in this one? Ra, I am Ra. The progression is somewhat close to the same, asymptotically approaching congruency throughout infinity. The free choosing of what you call galactic systems causes variations of an extremely minor nature from one of your galaxies to another. 16.38 Questioner, and then the law of one is truly universal in creating the progression toward the 8th density or octave in all galaxies. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. There are infinite forms, infinite understandings, but the progression is one. 16.39 Questioner, I am assuming it is not necessary for an individual to understand the law of one to go from 3rd to 4th density. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. It is absolutely necessary that an entity consciously realize it does not understand in order for it to be harvestable.
See, so in order to be harvestable, you actually have to get the concept of the laws. You have to get the concept of ascension, and therefore you would have to realize in your mind the possibility of moving up into a different reality. So you can't ascend without ever in any way not knowing the concept of life after this. That is what we're here to learn. We're here to expand and learn, not entirely, because we're here to also learn everything else. Literally, everything that is going on in the spiritual realm is playing out before your eyes in the physical for you to see. Okay? The school system that is being used by the Western Judeo-Christian pantheon around the world, and being taught to everybody else in all the other places, so they're implementing that. Everyone thinks, well, that's just the school of indoctrination to get, well, it is, but it's not. Everything is 50-50. That whole thing is, if you look at it, is grade 1 through 12. There's a reason those numbers are there. It's not 1 through 7. It's not 1 through 13. It's not 1 through 17. It's not 1 through 35. Okay? It's 1 through 12. And the reason for that is it's mirroring the levels of vibration that you use to get back to the one. It's the clock face. I love that Ray said that when she got that concept. And a lot of people around the world talk about the clock face, because the clock face, there's 12 hours of sunlight, 12 hours of darkness in a 24-hour time period, one day, one diurnal cycle, one day cycle of this planet, one rotation of the planet. Okay, and there's that number 12. And as you're ascending, first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, what are you learning? In the first 12 grades, you're learning general education. You're learning a little bit about a bunch of big concepts. And then when you go to college, it starts over at grade 1 again. And when you're in college, it's usually a 3 or 4 year, sometimes longer, depending on what you're learning about. But now you're learning about specific things, and you learn about 1 or 2 specific things that you want to do for the rest of your life that you might be interested in. And that's where you go from there. So the general education, that's literally mirroring what we're learning here. So we're learning the general education of all of the chakras and what all of those mean and what they represent. So emotionally, spiritually, physically, all of that, what the colors represent in the chakras, and what that represents to the archetypes of the human psyche, and they are literally those archetypes. They are literally those focal points of energy that make up your personality, and they are those colors and vibrations are teaching a certain lesson and a certain type of person that you become. So your first, the red ray root chakra, is teaching you life and being alive. And then when you start becoming motion and moving, then you go into the orange ray, and that's the motion, and that's second density, and that's what, second dimension, and that is, you're not rooted as a tree, you're actually like an animal, a bird, something that moves. And then when you become sentient, you go to the yellow ray, the third chakra, and that is the third dimension, and that is the place of doing. Now that I am aware, I think, therefore I am. You're in the place of doing, and now your learning starts consciously and subconsciously, and then your learning starts what? General education. So it's just the same as if you were in third grade, and then you move up from there, fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade. And as you're doing that in this octave, you're learning what is that there is a fourth grade, there is a fifth grade, there is a sixth, there is a seventh, and each one of those is teaching a specific thing: knowledge, wisdom, understanding, love, speaking as I choke up from your throat chakra, thinking in your mind chakra, expansion of consciousness in the third eye, and awakening that. All of that has to do with the same, what you learn in the grades as you get up to 12 and then graduate and go to college. And then you start doing what you do when you literally graduate from here and go to the fourth dimension and density. And then you start learning wisdom. And then the next one will be, I think it's wisdom, understanding, knowledge, sacrifice, because you get to love. And so you literally start the same thing. So the process that is going on this planet before your eyes, playing out in this reality, every bit of it. That's why when you wake up and you realize that you start seeing the ones and zeros and ones, you don't literally see that. Like you don't literally see that like Neo did in the end of the movie, the first one, but you almost do. You actually kind of start seeing the spirals and everything. And what that represents. So you almost see the ones and zeros and ones the way he sees that. You see that it is in everything and that it is everything, and it becomes very, very simple to you because you can't undo it once you have made that choice, because you can only get to that point by being in service to others. People who are in service to self don't get to see this. They don't get to see this. They're locked in the 3D. That's why the human number in the Bible is 666. It's 3 plus 3 only 3 times. And they don't go 3, 6, 9. They go 6, 6, 6. It's human nature 6. Human nature 6. It's a broken record. It's a computer program that's stuck 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, and it can't get past that, because the only way you can get past 6 is literally you have to choose to be in service to others. And literally to go past halfway through the 6th dimension or density, you cannot be evil. If you are in service to self, you will get stuck there. That is the purgatory and the hell that they talk about. That is the farthest away from the light you can possibly get, and you do not get to grow anymore. It doesn't matter how much you want to think that your devil is just as equal to God and that they're both sitting on 2 mountaintops and fighting for the human. That's all bullshit. It's all made up by evil people because they want everyone to believe that, because they're hoping people will manifest that. The truth is, the way the universe works is you get to go halfway through the 6th and then you're fucking stuck and you cannot go any further. 6, 6, 6, 6. That is a human number. You're stuck right there as a computer and you can't go past that until you change and start moving back towards the light and give up the darkness and give up being in service to self. And when that happens, you can then go past the halfway point of the 6th and start moving up towards the 7th and continue to ascend. But you have to only do that. Bo, welcome, brother. You have to only do that. It's been a minute, right? Now did you get banned by your other name? He's using another alias. He's back to Bo. You're back on Bo. Does that mean that one got unlocked or you recreated yourself? Welcome, by the way. So you get stuck there, and that's why the 666 is a human number. It literally, if you read it in the Bible, it tells you that 666 is the number of the beast. Well, it is the number of a human. It is a human number. It literally represents the human being and the human aspect and the human nature. That literally is what 666 represents. And it's literally 3 times 6. It's literally 666, and it goes on for infinity. So it's because you're stuck and you can't go any further. So you get to that 6 and you get stuck there, and it just repeats 6, 6, 6. And it's literally the 3 energy of the human aspect and the 3 energy of the place that is third dimension, nature and time space. And you can only have those 2 energies. So it becomes the 6 energy, and that's as far as you can go. Hopefully I'm explaining that in a way that you guys are getting. I know Celeste will get it. I know Peter will get it. I think Bo will get it. I'm pretty sure Bo will get that. Right. So that's why it's the human number. The human aspect, the number of the beast is us. We are the number of the beast because we are the beast. Okay. So the only devil there is the one within you. It's if you live in ego. And that aspect. So the number of the beast and the devil rules the world. It's because that's what the devil is supposed to do. The devil is in the details. The third dimension is the place where you're supposed to go and be tested and decide what you're going to be, but you can't leave this place. You can move up into the 4th and the 5th and the 6th density and reality, but you can't go past the 6th. So that's it. That's all for you. You can't go any further. So then you don't have to descend all the way back down and start all the way over. You just switch, but you have to actually make the real switch. You can't pretend. The universe doesn't allow that. So evil people here are so locked into 3D that they literally believe that they can't believe. They have to defy all of those ideologies. So they reject that ideology with their very soul and hatred, and become obsessively hatred. If I say these words, in fact, if any of you who are in the audience, you'll leave. You'll get so pissed off at me, you'll want to kill me because of what I'm saying right now. Because that's how offensive it is to someone who is in service to self. It literally is anti your entire being. Because for you to grasp the concept or admit to yourself, that diminishes your ability and power by admitting that or even thinking it. So you have to enrage yourself like a Sith Lord against that to keep yourself from in any way contemplating what I'm saying. So that's why literally when people say, how do we deal with, like Dawn says, Dawn says they're attacking Carla, and it's this assassin that's psychically attacking her. How do we defend against that? What should we do? And Ra's like, you greet him with the love and light of the infinite creator. And that's doing that because that is the anti everything they are. So therefore it stops them in their tracks. They have to run away, because if they don't, they have to face it. And to face it, to see it, to look at it, admits that it is a thing. If you ever watched that movie, oh God, what was the name of the movie? Rutger Hauer was in it. And I can't think of her name. And it was set back in the Matthew Broderick was in it. And it was, the two of them had a spell on them. They were in love, man and woman, and they were in love. And the evil wizard put a spell on them so that at night she became a hawk and he became a wolf. So they could not be together every night, and especially during the full moon. And only in the dusk of the morning, at the sunrise and when the sun was going down, those two for seconds, they would transfer back to humans and be able to touch and caress and kiss one another and speak to each other. And then they would quickly change aspects again. And it literally took them being present in the face of the evil wizard who cast a spell on them. And at that exact moment when they transferred to human, they had to be standing side by side, and he had to look at each one of them individually and see them as a human, and then look at the two of them together and see them as a human standing side by side, and that would break the spell. So that's another movie where that entire concept is trying to show you the same lesson, that the seeing, the knowing, you can't unknow it, and to acknowledge that they were there not as one wolf and one hawk, or she was an eagle and she was a hawk, and that they were not animals, that they were humans, to see them each individually as that human again, and then see the two of them side by side literally broke the spell just by him witnessing that. It was a beautiful movie, great movie. Most people didn't get the whole entire concept, but you can look it up. Matthew Broderick was the star. He's a great, funny thief, and I believe it was Rutger Hauer who played the and what's her name? I can't think of her name. Really pretty blonde woman. I can't think of her name right now. She played Catwoman in the 90s. I can't think of her name. She was the woman in that, the love interest. Great movie. You should watch it. It's funny. It's campy. It was done in the 80s or 90s. I think it was in the 90s. But it's a good movie. And the whole concept of the writing was very awake in that respect. Okay. So let's go ahead and continue with some more of the Law of One.
Understanding is not of this density. 16.40.
Thank you, Celeste. Michelle Pfeiffer. I don't know why I could see her face. I literally could see her face. And I've seen her naked, so I literally see her body, but I couldn't think of her name. Beautiful, beautiful woman. As growing up, I always had a thing for her. She's an absolutely beautiful woman. And she was really sexy as Catwoman, by the way. One of the most sexy Catwomen out of all the women who've ever played Catwoman since the 60s. Michelle Pfeiffer. Super hot. Okay, let's continue. Right? See, Celeste said that too. My favorite Catwoman. Yeah, I agree. She was sexiest, the most sexiest. The only other character that I thought was really sexy was what's her name, who played Poison Ivy. She did a really good job there too. I can't think of her name either. I can see her face. She was in Kill Bill. And she played Poison. I think it was her. She played Poison Ivy. That was super sexy too. That was the greatest, perfect Poison Ivy. Right, I mean that's akin to Michelle Robbie playing, playing in Suicide Squad, and that was super sexy. She's super sexy too, right? Yeah, Uma Thurman, super sexy. Great Poison Ivy. My God, that was sexy, right? And then I never saw the Wolf of Wall Street. I was just seeing there was something where they said that when she was in that movie, not Uma Thurman, but what's her name, Margot Robbie. And she was teasing Leo DiCaprio that it was one of the most paused and rewound scenes. I have not actually seen that. I just saw her as in Suicide Squad. I didn't even see the second one. That was super sexy. She's really a sexy woman. And it was funny because she was not really super outgoing in real life about that. And she didn't know that she was going to be wearing that skimpy ass costume. And she was like, oh, fuck, I can't believe they're having me do this and wear this skimpy ass costume. And then she started hanging out, here in America, because she's Australian. She started hanging out with all the stars and the younger stars. And people like Uma Thurman were like, baby, you got a body. Flaunt it now while you're young. Get into it and embrace that. You will be multi-billionaire by the time you're 45, and then they won't want to cast you anymore, and you'll get all the old woman roles. So before that, utilize your body and fucking go. And so she did, and I think she's been doing that ever since. And she laughed and said they're so right. And so the women are smart. Again, getting back to what you guys were talking about, what Celeste was talking about. The women in Hollywood are a little smarter than people think, and they're like, look, they want to see your body. You don't have to get completely undressed. Some of them have, and that's really sexy, but it's not necessary. But to flaunt that, you're gonna get parts because they're gonna want you're hot and people will buy tickets, so they'll give you a lot of fucking money and use it while you can before you lose it. And they're smart for doing that. They get all kinds of really fucking good roles, and they're super hot. And then if they get old, all they have to do is take care of themselves, and they'll still be around for a long time, being really beautiful women. And if they don't, they made millions. They don't care. They'll be like, they can retire, have kids, and live their life, and people will still know them as that a super hot person. That's smart to do that. If you're gonna play the game, play it and then go after it and use that power, right? Right. So Rick said, I didn't understand how, if Hollywood is, or I don't understand how, let me put my glasses back on, I had them off. I don't understand how, if Hollywood is manipulating and power that want to be to stifle us, why would they make movies? Because that's a great question, Rick. That's actually a really good, it's pertinent. And people say that all the time. I ask the question, why is it, I asked this when I was younger, why is it that these bad guys who are in the government system covering shit up can never cover everything up and there's still shit that people find? Why is that? Why don't they just go and purge the records and fucking burn everything? Put it through a shredder, make it go away. There's a prime directive that they can't do that. The harder they try, the more they in science we call it chaos theory. But it's part of the prime directive. If you're literally like John F. Kennedy was assassinated by the CIA and the mafia here in the United States. We know this. We haven't been able to prove it yet because we haven't uncovered the documents, because they put a 100-year moratorium on investigating it. January 6th here in the United States was planned and executed by the government of the United States of America and the Progressive Party that is in charge. We know that because they put an 80-year moratorium on the investigation. Why would they do that if there's nothing to see here? If it was in fact a bunch of crazy Republicans, MAGA Republicans, why did they immediately say, no one can investigate this, but we'll tell you what happened? And then we come to find out that they left out like 175 hours of videotape and only showed 25 minutes of videotape. Why would they do that? Well, there's nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. You can't investigate it because we changed the law and said you couldn't. Okay, but they can't get rid of it. The reason that they can't get rid of it is because of free will on this planet. Even though they want to usurp free will, they can't. A vampire knows. You have to allow them to come in your house. So the Sith Lord hides, knocks on your door and says, hi, I'm a guy coming to work on your pipes. Can I come in? I'm your best friend. Can I come in? They have to be invited in. And once they get in the house, then they can wreak havoc on you. They can rape you, pillage you, drink your blood. And that is the way the laws work here. Okay. We covered this last week and the week before when Don said, what would happen if the evil empire actually came down and got boots on the ground here and took control? And the law of the universe, the law of one, the law of the universe would dictate that if a billion soldiers, a million soldiers, whatever your number is, shows up here on the planet to overthrow the planet, you're going to have a shift in the dynamic because there has to be a natural balance in everywhere that's 3D. So immediately, everyone will rally against the aliens. Even people that would normally be evil and that were trying to take over the world themselves will now turn and become in service to others and fight against the aliens to kill them. And even if you fake it, which is what the government has planned since the 90s, the government of the United States, most governments around the world, by the way, because they're all part of it, they have this mock false flag alien invasion because they want to get everybody, because there's literally people posting just the other day, if aliens actually showed up on Earth, that all people would unite under one banner on the planet. That's what they're trying to get you to believe. They want you to believe that because they know the dynamic. So one of the plans they have to take over the world is last resort, fake alien aggression. But they have to thwart it. It's the Hegelian dialectic. They have to invent the crisis, but not let you know that it's their invention, COVID. And then they have to unleash it on the planet and not let you know that they did that on purpose, Wuhan province, Wuhan laboratory. And then they have to have a cure for it before you figure all of that out. COVID shot, mandatory, get the shot now. Hegelian dialectic. January 6th, Hegelian dialectic. They invented the entire thing. They know that because the FBI was embedded into these people who were the ones who went to the Capitol. And then when they were asked, wait a minute, just how much embedding did the FBI have? They said, never mind that now. We don't want you to know about that. And then they closed the books and you can't look into it because the FBI were the ones that stirred everybody up. because it was their plan. That comes from the Three Musketeers book. If you read the Three Musketeers or watch any of the movies, you see that to make the king look weak and useless in the eyes of the English queen and the Spanish king, the Catholic priest, or he was a bishop, hired Hessians from Hesse, which became Prussia, which was part of Russia, the steppes of Russia, hired the military, and they acted like and dressed like peasants and went out and paid poor peasants money to run into the capital and wreak havoc. And it took D'Artagnan, who ran into one of them in the kitchen. He started fighting him and said, "You fight very well for a peasant," and realized he was a soldier. And he was fighting the guy, and the guy ran away from him. And he told the, Athos, Porthos, he told them that this was orchestrated. These are soldiers. These are literally privateers. They are paid soldiers. This whole entire plan, it was a plan. January 6th was that. And the same thing happened in Brazil last year. Okay. It's the Hegelian dialectic. But they have to, before the people turn against them, and they have to then thwart the alien invasion and say, "Oh, but it's lucky we had all these spaceships that you guys didn't know about in the Space Force." Pearl Harbor, yes. 9/11, right? Celeste has given you guys more examples of the Hegelian dialectic in that really did happen that way. 9/11, global 9/11, and Pearl Harbor. Those are also, Pearl Harbor was the same. Pearl Harbor was done. They knew the Japanese were coming. That's been proven. And the guys saw them on radar and called and told them, and they ignored it and allowed it to happen. They allowed themselves to get attacked so that they could enter into the war against the Japanese, because they knew that the Germans, they had secret knowledge that the Germans were working with the Mexicans and the Japanese. The Mexicans were supposed to invade California, Arizona, and Texas on land, and the Mexicans turned against them because the Mexicans realized that it was the Aryan race that was coming, and they were using the Japanese and the Mexican races to overthrow America, and they were going to take it from them. So the Mexicans actually told the American government, "This is a plan, and this is what's going to happen." The Japanese didn't play ball with them and stayed with the Germans and actually came to attack them, but the Americans knew about it ahead of time, but they needed to get the nation behind them, so they allowed it to happen so that they could enter the war. Okay, all of that, above that, this is what Celeste is referring to. Above that, it was a global conspiracy, just like 9/11. It was actually the cabal orchestrating all of it just to lower the population of the earth and to get everybody polarized the way they wanted them to. And that's what the false flag alien invasion would be, the same thing. And I know that sounds crazy to some of you. If you're in the 3D, I sound really crazy with things I'm saying to you. When you ascend to starting to see the yin and the yang for what it is, and you see that dance and you look back down, you see how simple it is, and then everything opens up in your knowledge to the universe and your understanding, your inner standing. That's why I say that, because you don't stand under anything at that point. Your inner standing taps into the Akashic record, and then you actually see things from the perspective of an adult, not a child. And then you realize that Pearl Harbor, the First World War, the Second War, every war you've seen that has been a global war or a small skirmish on this planet has been done on purpose for their benefit, always, 100%, going back thousands, tens of hundreds of thousands of years on this earth. All of it. Every large skirmish that killed off a lot of people was done to do just that, to use you. They actually call you useless idiots. They actually call you that. Here in the United States, that is what politicians refer to the slaves as, useless idiots. I'm not kidding you. And it sounds insane. It sounds crazy. I'm not going to talk too much about that. The algorithm's going to grab that. But Penny said it's not crazy. History repeats itself. Yes, it does. And if you watch Battlestar Galactica that came out in 2004, that entire series, that 3-year series, they're playing that out for you, and they're showing you that everything. And they say this when you finally get on board the ships with the Cylons, you see that their ships are being literally, they're alive. All of their ships are organic and they're alive, and literally they're being run by hybrids, humans who are part Cylon and part human, and they're tapped into the ship. And those people over and over again speak in riddles, and the few things that they say out loud that you can discern is all of this has happened before and all of this will happen again. All of this has happened before and all of this has happened again, because they were alive when the 100,000 years earlier, when the first thing happened in the 13th colony. There's that 12 colonies, and they were all the zodiac signs, by the way, if you don't know anything about that whole entire endeavor of Battlestar Galactica. And they were chasing the 13th colony that broke away from the 12 colonies thousands of years ago, and they went to a place called Earth. Okay, they were coming here, and they got here to Earth, and all the people on Earth were decimated and had been dead for about 10,000 years or 20,000 years. And it turns out they were all hybrid computer humans. And they evolved on Earth and eventually destroyed themselves again in a war between the machines and the humans, and they obliterated themselves. And all of the people that were there, the souls in the bodies of the humans that were back home, that came there to find them, were the actual souls of the people who lived on Earth at the time. And those people in new bodies 10,000 years later came to Earth, and it's our past from 187,000 years ago. And they got here on Earth and scuttled all of their spaceships and became humans and settled at this planet and eventually became us now. Great. I just ruined the last part of the series for you, but you should watch that. It's fucking phenomenal. It's very spiritual in that the spiritual beings who believe in God are the actual robots, the hybrids, the synthetics. They're the ones who believe in God in that reality, and the single God, the one. And all of the people believe in the many gods, just like here on Earth, where you have for certain religions who believe in many gods. And Zeus, Apollo, all of those names are the gods. So it's very Egyptian-like in their mentality. So the original series in the 70s, they actually dressed very Egyptian-like. And their helmets were an Egyptian helmet. But they were in space, and in this one they kind of did away with that. But all the names, literally the characters' names, Apollo, Starbuck, Athena, all those people have those names in there, and they all come from Taurus and Aquarius and Virgo, and only they changed the name. That's the original names from hundreds of thousands of years ago. Now it's like Tauron, Virgon. So the name has evolved, but it still means the same, and it's all the same sun signs that we have. It's all the same moon signs. Everything that we have, the laws of the universe are still the same even there. And this is what Ra's literally talking about right now. So I think it's great that you just led me there, the way you guys led me there, right? It's because it literally comes in a full circle. Atlantis, yes. Celeste, Lemuria, Atlantis, over and over. Yes, those are all the same. This has happened before, and it happens again. The Atlanteans, what she's referring to, and the Lemurians before that, the Atlanteans, some of them were Luciferians. That's where we get Lucifer from, by the way. The Luciferians, Lucifer was a person, a human, that came from Moldek, the planet that got blown up. They came here to Earth because it was the only inhabited place after the war that they had gotten into, which was an interstellar war, where they killed everybody on Mars, blew up Moldek, and destroyed most of the life here on this planet, Earth. And they had to bring one of their satellites, a Death Star, Star Wars Death Star, which is our moon, which was broken down. It was actually around a moon, orbiting a moon of Moldek. And they towed it here and put it into place so that it would keep our ecosystem working, so then they could live on our planet. So then they came down here and they scuttled their ships, just like we do in the past, where we sail a ship to Australia and then take the ship apart and build a house out of it, and nobody can go home. The Vikings did the same thing. Everyone did that for generations on this planet. Same thing happened when Christopher Columbus got here to the New World. They took apart their ships and built houses out of their ships, especially the Longhouse. The Longhouse in the Viking pantheon was the keel. The hull of the ship itself would be the roof, and then they would prop it up, and that would be literally what they did, so nobody could go home. Or they would scuttle the ship and burn it, so you were stuck here. You'd have to build another ship. That way you had to live here. They did the same thing and the Atlanteans literally then rose as a society, and then they blew the fucking place up in another war. All this has happened before, and all this will happen again. Over and over again, it's the cyclical nature of the humans. In World of Warcraft, I play World of Warcraft, and one of the expansions a few years ago, about 7 years ago now, was the expansion of the panda, and the panda people were actually very Japanese, very Asian, but their whole way is in that very Asian. It's like Kung Fu Panda that came out at the same time, so they made the characters that were that. So you could play the characters of the Kung Fu Panda. I literally have one. I play a female who's literally a monk, fights just like Kung Fu Panda with her hands and feet. And one of the things they say in the video, you can go watch this, you can Google this, go to YouTube and look it up. Pandoria, look up the Pandoria expansion, and you'll literally watch the video. And the video, the panda, who's Asian, has an Asian accent, is talking, and he says literally in the beginning, "Why do we fight? It is in our nature." Okay. And he says, as the whole thing goes on, he's talking through the whole thing, narrating it, chronicling it, being the chorus. And at the end of it, he says, it's a 5-minute video or so. At the end of it, he says, our people, he says, why do we fight? We fight to protect home and family. Our people have a better question, not why do we fight? Because it's in our nature. He says, why do we fight? And he says, why do leaves fall? Because it's in their nature. Our nature as the humans is the beast. Our nature is war, because we start out in warlike as the beast. So that's the lesson that's being taught. And in the end, he says, rise above it spiritually to the understanding. He doesn't say this out loud, but this is what he's saying with his message. My people have a better question. What is worth fighting for? And that's only home, family, and harmony. And that's literally what they're teaching. And that's what that entire expansion was about, was to expand people's consciousness to start embracing the other half of the Kundalini energy. And they're playing that out in the video game. And they do that everything in the video game is played out exactly the way life is being played out currently with the expansions. Literally, when the inflation hit the world, all the cost of everything in World of Warcraft doubled. Inflation was inside there. It literally acts the same way. And they don't do this on purpose. It's just people, because inflation, start charging more for shit in video games, just like they do in real life. So when people are making a lot of money and the inflation is low out here in the world, if you go to World of Warcraft, all of a sudden things become cheap, because that's the mindset of what's going on. So literally you're transferring this reality into that reality in that game. As below, so above, as within, so without. So we're literally doing that in this video game. And for those of us who are theologians who pay attention to the human psyche and what they do spiritually, we see that playing out exactly what's happening to the economy of the world. It happens in video games in a free world economy. And that's what that is. That's a set up. World of Warcraft literally is a world unto itself that is unfolding there in real time right now. And I go there all the time and play characters and do jobs and work and make money. Or just quest and kill and hunt other humans. And literally, it mirrors what's happening on the outside in this 3D reality. And it's subconscious. People don't know about it. It's so realistic. And the reason I bring this up is because as within, so without, that you can tell whether a person is in service to self or service to others by how they act in the game. In the game, you can run through other humans. If you literally are in service to self, you will not move out of the way of someone else, nor will you move around them. Your instincts will be, this is a game. It's for my pleasure. I'm just going to run through this person because you can. Those people who are in service to others playing the video game will actually, even though that doesn't matter if I run my character right through your character who's standing still, we will instinctively move around or jump over you to not run through you, because it's rude to do that to somebody. But those people who don't give a fuck because they're in service to self, they just run right through you. Always. They will never try to move out of the way. So sometimes you'll be rounding a corner and you'll be on your mount hauling ass, and you'll come around a corner and somebody else will be coming the other way, and you guys will literally try to get out of each other's way. If the person doesn't and they don't care, because It's just a game, man. It's for my pleasure. They're just going to run through you. They're never even going to try and move. Their instinct isn't to move out of the way. So it literally, for those of us who pay attention to spirituality, I can tell you in a second, just like I can with humans out here in this world. I can tell you whether you're in service to self or service to other, whether you're hiding from me or not, by the way you think, move, speak, the things you do say, the things you don't say, how you do and don't say, and how you act and don't move. Literally, how you act inside of a video game will literally show people your actual inner soul. And you can't hide that, because eventually you forget and to do it. That's like when you tell a lie, you got to remember who you lied to about what, and you got to get all the lies straight. And eventually you get caught because you're lying to everybody. And it's so much easier just to tell the truth, because you don't have to worry about, you're consistent then. You're 100% consistent if you're always honest, because you have nothing to hide. So when you tell a story to somebody, if you tell the same story to somebody else, you're going to tell it the same way, because you're not hiding anything. Do you see? Right. It's right. Rick says, I like walking in the streets and people will walk 5 abreast. Right. And yet you have to move out of the way, right, when passing. Right. And see that. Right. And that pisses you off. Because they're literally challenging you, right? And they do that, and then you either have to make a choice. I'm going to be willing to fight. That's the Lorax, the 2 Lorax in the middle of the desert that were walking up to each other, and they stood there facing each other. Move, no, you move, no, you move, no, you move. And they're literally in the middle of a desert, so there's like 100 miles on all sides. They can just sidestep, and neither one of them wanted to do that. That was the lesson that was being taught by Merlin to King Arthur when they were trying to go across the bridge. And Lancelot was on the bridge and wouldn't let anybody come through unless they could best him in combat. Instead of going around the bridge, their arrogance and their ego said, no, send a knight up there to kick his ass. And he defeated all the knights. And eventually Arthur went up there because he was pissed off, and his ego got the better of him. And he almost killed Lancelot, and he broke the Excalibur and almost destroyed Excalibur altogether. Luckily, they took it and threw it into the water, and the Lady of the Lake grabbed it and fixed it and brought it back for them, right? But it was only when he learned his mistake that it was replenished to him. That was the purpose of that entire lesson, was the same thing, was that if, and this is the lesson of Jesus in Turn the Other Cheek. It doesn't mean let the person beat the fuck out of you. And everyone says somebody punches you in the face, I'm just supposed to show them the other side. They're just going to fucking punch me in the face there. That's not what that means. To you, if you're 3D and you're worried that you're going to get your ass kicked, and that's what you think that's going to happen, that's what that will happen to you. That's not what that means. Turning the other cheek doesn't mean allowing someone to victimize you and beat the fuck out of you. And that was the lesson that was shown to you in the movie by what was it called? The one about the Civil War in the United States, done by Mel Gibson, and literally that was a lesson that was being taught in there. And now I'm trying to think what Mel Gibson's character's name was in the movie. And they were showing you when the people were being hunted and killed by the English, and they were putting them in the church and burning them all, right? When they were starting to do that, before they killed the entire town, they were trying to get people to patriot. Thank you, Celeste. And when I'm on the spiritual track, it's hard for me to jump back into a movie and get the name and jump back out. If I just was talking movies, I would have been able to rattle all that up. Literally, they went to the church and they were trying to recruit people, and we took the woman, and this happened in real life, by the way. That was a documentary. That was not a fictional, a Hollywood movie. That was actually what happened in America in real life, and literally took the woman who stood up in the church and literally said, all of you guys have been railing about freedom, and now when they're asked for you to actually fight, you're all cowering like cowards. And all of them decided, a bunch of them decided to go and join the militia, and the priest decided to go. And they were like, Father, what are you doing? And he says, sometimes a pastor who is tending his flock has to also fight off the wolves. And that was what he was trying to teach you, that it didn't mean turn the other cheek and not fight for your rights, but it means not to hold that against them and be so stubborn as to not move or bend. That's what the Art of War was talking about in a few places in the Art of War from Sun Tzu, one of which being fight your enemy where they're not, was more of a spiritual ideology than it was run and hide or fight in a run and kill them in town. Kill the boys in the Lageach. That's from Henry V, which also happened in real life. And that's what the French did, which really pissed off Henry and solidified the next battle that they fought, and that's how they lost the war. That's how the French lost the war, because then he was ravenous because they were murdering children, and that was the kill the boys in the Lageach. The Lageach is the place where you have all of the armor and the weapons and the food and all of your supplies, and those are all the squires. And it's against the rules of combat to attack the squires. They're not knights, they're not soldiers. They're learning all of that, and they're putting in their time. So that's like killing prisoners. It's against the rules of combat and the code of conduct of a nobleman. And the French ordered that when they were losing the fight, they sent a unit in to murder all of the kids in the Lageach. And when they found out about that, and Henry found out about that, he was ravenous over that, and it literally turned the tide of the war. Before that, they were kind of not doing really well. They were doing well. They were marching through France, but they were starving and ready to give up. And by the French doing that in that one battle at Agincourt, they turned the tide when they found out about it, and they won that battle, and then won all of France because of it. France literally surrendered after making that mistake, right? So that was the lesson that was being learned there as well. They could have flung themselves at France and destroyed them utterly, but they didn't. They turned the other cheek, and they just became enraged and said, "We will." And that was the message of "unto the breach one." And they literally said in that speech, if I come again, I will do these things. I will dash the old men's heads on the walls. I will toss the children off of the ramparts and murder every last human in this place. I do not want to do that. Surrender now, or we will do this thing. And that was when the king surrendered, because it was under the threat of, I am trying to turn the other cheek. If you are forcing me to not, I will utterly destroy you. And that was the lesson that was being taught and played out in real history from the Battle of Agincourt. Right? See, that's the stuff that people trip that I see. And you see this and that's why Celeste, I love when she's here, because I know that she sees this shit too, and she throws them up there as I'm talking. Right? When you unlock that within yourself, the knowledge, you start to see these lessons that were actually there in history and in real life, or in books and fables of what the author was trying to say. Getting back to your question from a while ago, Rick, how is it and why is it that these movies are there? They can't stop it. There is a 50-50 everything here. You have complete autonomy and carte blanche to choose this planet, this reality, everywhere where third dimension exists, is heaven and hell at the exact same time. And it is what your perception of your reality determines what you live in, either heaven or hell. There was a song by a German metal band called Accept. And one of the albums was about heaven and hell, which is also from Ronnie James Dio. When he was with Rainbow, I think. I don't think that was a Black Sabbath song album, but it might have been. And it was called Heaven and Hell. I'll get to that one in a second. So the one from Accept, the chorus was, heaven is never in heaven. Heaven is there where hell is, and hell is down on earth. Because the lead singer of the band writing the song was awake enough to realize your perception of your reality determines whether you are in heaven or you are in hell. Heaven is not a place that is out in the universe somewhere that you have to go to. Heaven is a place that you're instantaneously at because it's a state of mind. It's a state of spirituality. And he was literally saying that as a speed metal band from the 80s singing a song, and the band was called Accept, ACCEPT. He was singing in English. And you should listen to the song. Heaven is never in heaven. This is the chorus from the song. Heaven is there where hell is, and hell is down on earth. So people who think that this place is hell would love the song, and they're just anti-world and, yeah, man, this is hell. We're in hell, because that's what you want to believe. But the truth is, what he was saying in that song is that it's literally only what you make of it. And that was the lesson in Star Wars when Luke was learning from Yoda, and they found the place entering the underworld, very Egyptian-like underworld. And he said, oh, it's cold, and that place is dark. And he said, strong with the dark side is that place. And then he said, your weapons, you won't need them. And he said, what's in there? Luke says to Yoda, and he says, only what you take with you. In you must go. And he went in there with his weapons. And then, if you saw or read the book, you know what happened. He went in there and Darth Vader was there. And if you really pay attention, Darth Vader doesn't draw his weapon. He just walks up, and then he draws his weapon first. He's being the aggressor. Darth Vader then turns on his lightsaber. Darth Vader does not attack him. He attacks Darth Vader, and Darth Vader defends himself. And then he chops Darth Vader's head off, and the mask blows open, and it's Luke. And then if you go and apply that to King Arthur, that's the same scenario that Lancelot played out when Lancelot fought himself. And Lancelot ended up with a wound from it and was bleeding. And that wound never healed all the way. And that wound he still had that wound when he fought in the final battle, fighting. And when he was trying to find Arthur, that wound had opened up again. That wound was deep in him. And that was the same wound that Frodo Baggins got when they were on the mount, and the Sith, the kings of the humans who had been turned into the Nazgul, stabbed him with the knife just outside of his heart. And that wound stayed, and the wound never healed properly, even though the wizards and the elves tried to use their magic. That wound was forever a soul wound, and that was a torment wound that came from deep within himself. And that was but you think it was the Nazgul that did it, and it was the Nazgul was the tool, but the wound was that part of his soul fighting. When he was fighting himself, and that was what Lancelot was doing, and he was fighting himself, and he wounded himself, and that was a deep wound because he wounded himself. And Luke, they didn't give him a wound, but his wound was a spiritual wound. And that was when he lost, and he realized that. And Yoda said, that's why you failed. Shortly thereafter, when Yoda raised up the ship out of the water, he said, I don't believe it. And he said, that's why you failed. And that was a reference to him failing in the cave. And that was because he didn't look and open his third eye and see things that way through his third eye. It was supposed to be an enlightening moment. The same thing happened. The carnal that Lancelot had sex with Arthur's wife and his feeling bad about that when he fought himself. That was the deep wound that he got, was his shame of having sex with the king's wife and lover. And his shame in doing that was his inner turmoil and his inner wound because of his lust in 3D, his ego. Do you see? So that's the same scenario playing out that is showing you. And that's the Lorax, and that's the turn the other cheek, is rising above the knowledge of that this person, and don't get caught up in blow for blow with them to fight them where they're not. Where are they not? They're in the physical because they're attacking you. They're not in the spiritual. So you defend yourself in the physical, and that's why the Shaolin priests did that. You defend yourself, and me being a knight, a paladin, literally knighted by the Roman Catholic Church. Why is it that a holy soldier is a holy soldier? Well, they're a holy soldier of God. I get it. Well, that's actually bigger than you think it is. Right? That's actually bigger than you think it is. But yes, So literally, it's the choice of not fighting for the sake of fighting for the ego of I'm going to beat this guy to show everybody I'm better than him. It's fighting to defend yourself, and your defense of yourself is also defending everyone. So the choice of becoming in service to others is I'm not going to fight just because I'm going to fight. I'm not going to just stand here and go, no, you move. And go blow to blow with somebody for the pure sake of doing that because you want to dominate them. That's service to self. So that's the lesson that is being taught with all of that. So that plays out in the streets. You have to either say, I'm going to go around this person, and then people will go with a bigger person, and then they'll look at you and go, pussy, because you moved out of their way. Well, that's because they're trying to goat you to fight them in the third dimension. The third dimension is their realm. That's the realm of evil. That's the realm of the devil. And you're supposed to rise above that. So do you fight in self-defense? Abso-fucking-lutely. But you're not fighting because you're trying to murder and kill people. You're fighting to defend yourself and others. That's the creed you take as a knight. I got knighted, and it's defend the defenseless. Speak the truth. Be upright and speak the truth, even if it leads to your death. It is a way of life that you are in service to others, and you will throw yourself upon the rocks if you have to defend the all. And that was what Jesus was trying to teach them, and that they all ran from him. And you will all, Peter just talked about this yesterday. And by the time the cock crows 3 times, when the sun comes up, all 12 of you will literally deny me. And they all said, no, we'll die for you. And then they all denied him. And they realized it when the cock crowed. They all were witness to the last man at that moment. And it plays out in the movies and in the Bible. And all 12 of those men subsequently were murdered for defending Jesus within the next 35 years of their lives. In that is actually told, the story is actually told as well. Okay. The wounded warrior, yeah, right. Celestis is going on, right? Is that Huron? Is that how that's pronounced? Huron, the wounded warrior Huron. I think that's the Huron, not the Indian Huron, but or maybe it is. I'm not exactly sure of the spelling, but I think that's the pronunciation. The wounded warrior, wounded knee, right? The wounded warrior, the unhealing wound from his own poison, shot by an arrow from his friend's bow. Okay, so there's this story again. So you are saying the Huron, so the wounded warrior. It's the same thing. Agreed, right? And so your action, Rick says, your action leads you to either like karma, frequency, attraction, etc. So I think yes. So literally, your actions and your choice. You're saying okay. So it's the Greek. But it's still pronounced the same way. But it is a Greek, right? And so it says he taught. Okay, he was the one who actually taught Heracles. See, so it was Huron. You're right. I was right. So it's not the Native American Huron. That's why, because that's with an H, not with a CH. But it's pronounced the same way. Huron. I'm trying to say it with the CH together. It's probably Churon, not like CH chur like we would say. It's probably more of the Churon. So, but yes, he was the one who taught Heracles. And I say that properly, not Hercules. It's actually in the Greek is pronounced Heracles. Right. So that's part of right. So I believe it's the Greek. Heracles is the asteroid, and in your natal chart. Because everything they had in their pantheon they put in the sky as well, as below, so above, right? With the K as a K, so Chiron. There you go. Okay, as a K, not as the. I was trying to. So it was Greek. I was trying to do the Gaelic or the Welsh, which would have been the CH together almost as a K. But it would have been more with that French vibe to it. So that's more Latin. So you're right. It is with the K. So the CH made the hard K sound because they didn't have they didn't have a K in any of those languages. Right. So Chiron. Yeah. So Chiron. So agreed. So, but that's the same story. Again, there's another pantheon that's showing you that exact same story of a wound. And then in fact, when Achilles was killed, Literally, they said he had his weakness because the only arrow he still had stuck in him was the one. That's why I like the one that they did with Brad Pitt, where they showed that he got shot with a bunch of arrows, but he pulled those out, and so they didn't know that he was riddled. But it could have been a poison arrow as well, like Celeste was talking about with Heracles, and I think that's more plausible for Achilles as well. That we call that the Achilles heel because he died from one single bolt of the arrow, but I believe it was a poison arrow, and that's why he died from it. It wasn't like I like what they did with the Troy, the one that came out with Eric Bana and Brad Pitt. They had him get shot by 5 or 6 arrows in the chest, and he pulled those out, but the one he didn't pull out. So when they found him, he had the one arrow going through his heel, and then we call that the Achilles heel because of that. I believe it was a poison arrow, and that was the only place that he didn't have armor, and somebody actually shot him there. I don't know if it was done on purpose. You have to remember that he was being shot on purpose by what's his name, the Orlando Bloom character, and I think he shot Achilles there because there was no armor right there on the sandals that he was wearing, and I think he shot him with a poison arrow. He wanted to kill him. So I believe in real life what happened was that his name was right on the tip of my head, Orlando Bloom's character's name, and it was literally on the tip of my brain and went away. I believe that he shot Achilles with a poison arrow in that spot because it was the only place that he could hit Achilles with an arrow that didn't have armor, because the sandals that they wore had a back that went up the back of the foot, but the opening right there at the foot there was no armor on the sandal. So I think he shot him in this because the lower leg had all the way down. They wore like shin guard armor, and so then the from the knee up on the legs, the quadriceps would be blocked by the shield, and so all other parts of the body, unless his arm was up in the air and you could shoot him in the armpit, would have been had armor protecting it, except for the region of the foot that if you shot it from the right angle, it would literally go through your Achilles heel. And I believe that that his character, and I don't think that's right, Rick. I don't think his name was Atticus. I don't think that was what they called him in the movie, but it might have been more accurate to the history. So you might be right, Rick. He was the one who married Helen. And brought her back to Troy, and his character was the one that shot, because it was his cousin that Achilles was trying to save because he was in love with her and she was a priestess, and he hated Achilles and he killed their father and he killed his brother, right? Or he got his father killed because he came with the invaded army, and he killed his older brother. So he literally wanted to kill him, and he used a bow. And I think he had poison arrows, and I think he shot Achilles in the one spot that didn't have armor, and that was what killed him. Was the poison got into his blood, and he died from the poison. Paris, thank you, Celeste. Paris, that's who it was. It was Paris. Thank you. I had to put my glasses on. I was like, "What did Celeste just write?" I wasn't close enough to the screen. I put my glasses on. Paris, yes. So I believe that because Paris was the one who killed him. In real life, in history, shot him with arrows, but I think that all the other arrows didn't kill him because of his armor. So I think Paris, being very smart, he was very astute warrior and a very astute bowman. And I think that he realized after he shot him several times that none of the arrows were penetrating his armor, and he literally saw the one weakness that Achilles had, and that was that part of the shoe that he was wearing. Yeah, Menelaus. Yeah, well, that was his. Yeah. That was the king. That was the king that Achilles was following, but he didn't like him, and they hated each other. But yeah, King Menelaus, so Paris shot him with the arrow, and I think it was poison. But that was again the same thing. That was for a sin. Again, that was for a sin of what was going on in Paris's mind. He believed that he had raped his cousin. And in a sense he did, but he fell in love with her, and the two of them fell in love. When he first got her, that's why they show you that he wasn't there brutalizing her and raping her. She had been beaten because the other guys were trying to rape her, and he stopped it. And then he for some reason, he fell in love with her, and he didn't force her to do anything. That's why they like that they showed that in the movie, because that's untold in most history. You have to really look for the history and know the history to know that he wasn't a brute. And she even said that, use that word in the movie. Most men are brutes. I could kill you if you were a brute. I could hold it against you, but you're not a brute. You're not stupid. You're not a dumb brute. And she realized he was very wise. He was a Greek. They were philosophical, especially the hoplites. They were very spiritual and very enlightened for the time. Most of the best philosophers came out of the Greek philosophical thought that's still around on the planet. Okay, I'm going to stop here because right now this is why I've been wasting a lot of time going on about this, because things are going to change again for the last 10 minutes of this, and we'll do that next week. But I wanted to cover all of this because it had to do with what we just talked about, what Ra talked about, and what Ra is going to talk about. And it also is covering what's happening right now on the planet, which Rick and I were talking about prior to in the chat, in the class. He was talking about the personal spirituality, but the global spirituality is a lot of what's happening, what we were just talking about today. That's why I went on with that, right? Achilles was a Menelaus boy. He was one of the in that army, but they didn't like each other personally. That's why they showed that play, and they played it out when it's like all the warlords of the god in favor of the gods. I hate him the most. But he did fight in that army. Yes, he did come with that army to sack Troy. So he was one of his boys in that sense. They didn't like each other, but he was fighting for the Greeks. And you're right, Menelaus was the king, right? Yeah, his mother didn't like that, right? Yeah. Dipped him by his head, or did she make his armor? She made his armor, and she enchanted his armor. It was just like Arthur and Arthur's son but this was for the positive. Where she enchanted his armor, and as long as he wore his armor, he would never no sword or weapon known to man would be able to penetrate his armor. His mom made his armor for him and enchanted it, and that's why Paris had to find a spot that there was not covered by armor, and he found that one weak spot where there was no armor in his foot, and the bow, the arrow went through his foot, and it was poisoned. That's why he died. And Arthur's son had the same thing happen when his sister raped him. Basically, his sister drugged him and had sex with him and got pregnant, and tried to usurp the throne. And she did the same thing. She enchanted the son's armor, and no weapon known by humans or made by humans could penetrate the armor. And Arthur took the sword, the Excalibur, which was not made by the humans, it was made by the gods, and drove it through his armor and into his chest and into his heart and killed him. Right. So that was pretty badass. And that happened in other pantheons as well, where armor, like Thor had his cummerbund, made him impervious to weapons as well. As long as he wore that belt around his waist, his body was impervious to any. It made him immortal. There's other pantheons where they have the same thing that went on, right? And it's that's also other stories. I don't want to get involved in that right now. If I go down that road, that's another hour, right? Yeah, now you guys are bringing shit up. Pegasus, right? Ned Kelly. No, just don't go there, guys. Don't get me going. I got to get off here because I got to make dinner. But we can pick this up in the chat for Law of One chat. If you guys want to go there, you guys can talk there, or keep it for next week because we're going to be covering this stuff again. You'll see where the conversation goes, and it'll go back to this. So if those of you who happen to have popped in at some point and you're like, what does all this have to do with the Law of One? Everything. That's what I'm here to teach you. I'm here to teach you that all of this, everything that Ra was trying to teach, it has to do with everything that you have ever learned from every religion and every philosophical thought everywhere on this earth, and what every single person was trying to teach you. And literally the one form of the laws are what Ra's trying to get across. And in doing so, Ra's also trying to help you unlock the love and light portion. Remember, there's those of the love and light and of sorrow, and there's those of the law of one. Ra is teaching the law of one. I'm helping you to understand the law of one, but I'm not of that pantheon. I'm of the love and light. I'm with the Orion coalition of light. right? So we're here with the love and light that most of you hate us to hear us say, love and light. Oh, I hate saying that. So we're actually here teaching you love, but we're also teaching you the laws. So that's why a person like me will be able to teach you the laws of the law of one, but I'm also showing you how those laws apply and why. Whereas Ra is literally just trying to get across the laws to Dawn, but it's in there. Everything that he's saying, it's in there, right? Of the love and light as well. But Ra's only trying to answer the laws to bring that to the earth. So you can, if nothing else, when you read the Law of One books, all 6 of them, if nothing else, you will get the laws and how they work and why. But that happens and is told to you quickly in the first of 2 sessions, honestly. And then reiterated over and over again for a few sessions, but everything else in between is actually teaching you love and light, not the law. But to understand or to understand the law, everything is together. To know the law, you have to understand the law. You have to get it, and to get the law, you have to get the love and the light. You have to get you have to raise your consciousness to the Kundalini and transmute that. But you can only do that by knowing the laws, by understanding the laws of attraction, the laws of infinite wisdom, the laws of infinity, the laws of infinitive love, the laws of how the universe works and why. And to know that is to practice it. But to practice it, you have to know the love and light. But like everywhere else, if I were trying to teach only one thing, I could spend my entire life just teaching you the laws. And I can make that a practice and spend and have money, charge you money for it, and have you come to a class. Or I could teach you the others, just the love and light portion, and do the same. You can make everything, if you want, one profession. I don't choose to do that. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I could literally stop doing all of this and only teach Reiki, and I could charge you money for it. I have a license. I could charge you money for that. I could charge you money for writing spells for you. I could charge you money for doing a reading and give you a psychic reading, and only do that for the rest of my life and make a good living here on this planet doing so. I could any one of these things that I have the knowledge of and have the skills and the pieces of paper required, except for my Merlin title is not a piece of paper, because in the true Druid way, there's no piece of paper. You either are enlightened or you're not. Although these days Druids and Merlins have a piece of paper, because in some of the practices, because people want to have a piece of paper. We're paper driven. 3-dimensional mindset says you have to have a license that has somebody else's signature on it that vouches for you. And we have to know who that person is that's vouching for you. So, I mean, somebody had to vouch for that person. That's the chicken and the egg. How far does that go back before the very first person invented the thing? They didn't have a piece of paper with a signature on it that said someone told them. When Moses came down from the mountain, he didn't have a piece of paper that God gave him that showed that God said, and God gave him the commandments. He had the commandments that he brought down. I don't want to get involved in that right now, but even then they didn't believe that. When Jesus showed up and said, I'm the Son of Man, they didn't think he was anybody special at all. And he didn't have a piece of paper proving it. Do you see my point? Mahatma Gandhi didn't have a piece of paper that said, I'm a prophet and I'm teaching people spirituality, but he still did it. You're either wise or you're not. And Martin Luther King Jr. didn't have a piece of paper that said, I have gone to a school to teach me to how to get African Americans to fight for their rights. He didn't have any of that, right? And so people go, what makes you think you're well, you either are or you're not. So you either listen to me and think I'm crazy and run away because you think that man doesn't know what he's talking about. And that's okay. You have free will, complete free will, going back to why is it that they don't just get rid of shit? They can't. Why is it that even though they're trying to control everything, the movies are there, they have to. It's part of the law. It's part of the laws of the universe that you can't usurp free will. So they have to allow it. What they do is change it, like they did with The Matrix. They stole that from the guy who originally wrote it, and then they changed it and invented the Mr. Smith character as a rogue program within the Matrix, who became the devil and got eviler and eviler as time went on, and became a rogue unit who took off his earplug and didn't listen to being plugged into the computer. and went rogue. And eventually Neo had to go to the computer god, who at that point had been transformed into the god of the universe, beautiful, enlightened, holy place, not in any way trying to lock down the human race. Weird, because that was what the whole purpose of what was happening was. The human race was batteries for these robots. But now the robots are angelic by the fourth movie, and the third or fourth movie, and he goes and makes a deal with the robots, but nobody showed up in person, and they only spoke spiritually in his subconscious, in his mind. There was no representation in the physical, which gives you an astral projection again of the AI god being something huge and great, just like what you expect your god to be. There's the corruption in the story. Okay, they're ascending their god in the Matrix movies, the AI god, to the status of the God Almighty of the universe in that movie. That's what they did. And they make the devil be a insignificant in comparison to how big the AI god is. And they make a deal to, and the truth is, the deal they made was making a deal with the devil. Because if you think about it, Neo was like, we have to defeat this guy together or he's going to take you over. And so the AI god, you have to believe, was in fear. So if that's the case, then they wouldn't have made the decision, or everything that then it goes back to your choice again. Then it goes back to in the beginning of the end of the first movie, was that what was really happening, and that Neo couldn't do anything, and that it was all this happened before and all this is going to happen again. So therefore, this is just being played out. Right. I didn't see the last movie, Resurrection, so I don't know where they went with the whole entire scheme of things. But that's what they were trying to show you, that in truth, all the way back to the beginning, this whole thing was a lie, and it's happening, and that Neo is just going to die and be resurrected and come back and start all over again in another lifetime, and that the whole thing is just going to happen exactly that same way. And the one malevolent being that's still there constantly in control is the AI computer that is in control of the human race, and that will never change. That is what they told you that all of that was about, which was a lie stolen from the guy who wrote the entire thing, who has given countless videos and literally countless interviews telling you the story of what he was really intending, and that they stole it from him, and that they were flipping him off during the movies, blatantly on the screen, laughing and going, "We stole your fucking shit. You can't do anything about it." Okay. And so they corrupted the storyline. That's the only thing they can do, but they still have to. They can't stop it from being there, whether they want to or not. When they tried to destroy everything, when they burned Alexandria in the Second Council of Nicaea, guess what happened? Humans, the Essenes, stole away a bunch of scrolls and hid them in the desert, and they sat there for almost 2,000 years, and somebody found them. We call them the Dead Sea Scrolls. Okay, so that's the chaos theory, that the universe will find a way. So no matter how hard they try, and they show you that in the Matrix movie, when that one guy is turning them in, and he says to Serenity, if he's the one, then something from God is going to have to intervene because I'm about to kill him. So if he is the one, something will happen and I will kill him right now. So look into his eyes and tell me, is he the one? And before he can kill him, Tank, who he thought was dead, is not dead. And Tank shoots the fucker and kills him and saves Neo. Okay. So that's that lesson right there, that chaos theory. The universe will find a way. And he even says it. If he's really the one, the universe will find a way to stop me from killing him. And he talked just long enough for it to actually happen. And he goes, no, you're dead. And then Tank shoots him, kills him. He doesn't go back into the Matrix. Neo survives. They save the day. Neo lives. Neo is the one. And Neo ends up freeing the human race. Maybe because now they leave it, that's the corruption, to where you don't get to know whether or not he really did that. Okay, I got to go. I have to get dinner going. I love you guys. Realize that every book and every movie ever written has encoded in it the 50-50 chance for you to either get the knowledge that is being shown to you from the entire universe or to not. And when you raise to the point where you're awake, you then actually realize that it literally is in everything, and it literally has been in front of your face your entire life, and you giggle about how simple it is, and you can never unsee it. But you can only achieve that enlightenment by being in service to others. And that's where Nikola Tesla said true enlightenment only comes through universal enlightenment. And that's because it all comes from the universe. It literally comes from the universe, but you have to, that's where the God of the Christians, Jesus said that God is reaching down to you, and meeting you halfway. You just have to reach up. And that's why you always see the fresco on the church in Rome, where you have the hand reaching down from God and the hand reaching up and almost touching. That is the journey. That is why I called the show Orion Rising. That is the journey of our ascension, and us reaching up to God, and God is reaching down to us, but we have to reach up. God can only go halfway. Why? Because you have free will. So God will meet you halfway, but you have to meet God halfway. And the only way you can do that is to ascend upward to God, and God will take your hand. You will take God's hand, and you will be uplifted. But that you choose that path, and then choosing that path is not this earthly path. You have to literally look within yourself, fix yourself, and then rise up. And as you do that, it unlocks knowledge. And then the knowledge that becomes unlocked is how simple this test actually is. But it's really fucking hard until you realize how simple it is. And that's literally what you have to learn. But you can't learn it until you do. I can tell you this right now, but some of you out there hearing my voice are going to go, you're crazy. That's just insane. And some of you are like, I'm trying, but I'm not there. I was there. I was you. I literally was. I haven't been this awake my entire life. I thought I was awake. Every moment, it's like the law of one. I'm reading the sessions. I'm like, what could they possibly talk about for 106 fucking sessions? And it keeps going and going and going and going. Same thing happens in your spirituality. You think, am I already awake? I'm as awake as I need to be. Then you realize you're not. That's Socrates saying, the more you know, the more you realize that you know nothing. That's what that means. The more you ascend, the more you realize that you're at the bottom of the ascension. We're the third place from the bottom here. There's everything else is above us. There's far more above us than there is below us. We're, for the first time, conscious, sentient. I think, therefore, I am right here. This is the lowest place on the totem pole for a soul. Before that, you don't even know you're a soul. When you know you're a soul, then you ascend to this place. And on this earth, you become a human, or a dolphin, or a couple other things. But most people that are humans don't even believe in them being as intelligent. All right, guys, I love you. Have a great night. I will talk to you guys tomorrow, for those of you, 1 p.m., for those of you who want to tune in, to either, I'll be live on my page, and I'll be live on the Orion Coalition of Light, and I'll probably put it on Orion Rising as well. I'll be live on 3 places on Facebook, so you guys, and I'll link it to you, and I'll have everybody share it. But 1 p.m. West Coast America time, we'll be on for a few hours talking about Earth Day. I'll see you guys tomorrow. And then next week, I'll be back for the Law of One on Friday. And then next Saturday, I will be producing an interview on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, the group on YouTube. And we are going to have a couple of gentlemen on talking that you might want to go there and take a look at, that are going to be on, and we're going to have them talking to you guys again. I think it is. No, it's now I'm getting myself confused. I'll let you guys know. I'll repost it again. I'll post the commercial in between. But there is Ancient Aliens Worldwide, and that will be posted on Ancient Aliens Worldwide, then shared to other groups. So if you're not in Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook, the group, not the page, because there are 2. I own them both. But the group is where we're going live. Go to Ancient Aliens Worldwide on Facebook. You can join the group. You have to be in the group to watch it live. Otherwise, you can see it in Memorex later. You can listen to it on MP3 file afterwards. But if you want to be there live to ask questions, you have to be in the group, Ancient Aliens Worldwide, which is about to hit 300,000 members, the largest alien hunting group on the face of the earth, other than MUFON Global, the website. Okay. All right, guys. Have a great night. I love you guys. Peace. I'll see you guys tomorrow. If not, I'll see you next week.